The House will come to order. Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 861. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 861, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to transportation finance, the fourth engrossment.
The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson, two-year bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House File 861 is the transportation finance bill for the House for this year. It's a significant bill that commits the state to roads and bridges and transit all across the state of Minnesota. Total funding in the first biennium is over $2 billion of transportation funding, $2.19 billion. And over the 10-year cycle that we're considering here, actual spending is over $6 billion. To do this, we are doing it without raising taxes. No new gas tax, no new taxes, but we are capturing revenue related to transportation from the general fund. This revenue is generated by sales tax on auto parts, rental vehicles, and motor vehicle lease taxes. With that funding, and combined with significant amount of bond funds, we are able to fund roads and bridges across the state. The Corridors of Commerce program receives a $300 million bonding initiative in the first year of the biennium, using general obligation bonds at $250 million per year through the 4-year cycle. That generates the funds we need to build roads and bridges across the state. We're doing that, as I said, without an increase in gas tax or other fees. We are eliminating the Minnesota Department of Transportation Passenger Rail Office, which saves about $1 million over the biennium. There are also a number of other provisions within this bill that have been brought to our committee by a variety of members. And before I go any further, I want to make sure that I do thank a few people that helped us get to this point in the process. Starting with my committee members, many of whom have their bills in this omnibus bill. Thank them for their hard work in committee on both sides of the aisle. Did a lot to get us this far and get this bill in the fashion that it's in today. So I'd like to thank my Vice Chair on the committee, John Petersburg, for his hard work, and I'd also like to thank the lead on the Democrat side, Frank Hornstein, for his hard work, and his staffer Jenny Nash for her work on transportation. They both have a lot of knowledge and bring it to the table in committee. I'd like to thank our page, Sean Rabel. He did a magnificent job through the committee process. Nonpartisan staff have been a real godsend. Andrew Lee and Matt Burris are both experts in their field and do tremendous work. My own staff, my CLA Chelsea Peter, my researcher Jonathan Fortner, and especially my CA Joe Marble have all also done excellent work to get us to the point we're at. This bill also, I was mentioning the bills that others have brought forward. We are honoring a variety of folks with roads and bridges dedicated to certain individuals, and we're happy to do that. We have some special license plates that are authorized for law enforcement, for retired law enforcement, and for Start Seeing motorcycles. We are increasing the funding for the state trooper training. State troopers take a course of training to get prepared to get their certification as a state trooper. Many of them had to take a cut in pay in order to take that training. We are increasing funding there so that they are more properly compensated, and it makes it easier for us to attract troopers into the program. We are investing in rail crossing safety in a variety of ways in this bill. Rail crossing safety, rail crossing quiet zones, and rail grade separation projects. We are requesting of the Capital Investment Committee that they consider general obligation bonds not only for road and bridge projects, but also for these rail grade separation projects at an annual rate of about $35 million a year. There's a number of them across the state. We designate 3 of them in this bill: Hanson Boulevard in Anoka, Moorhead, and Red Wing. We authorize funds from the federal government, and we also authorize the spending of funds from the State Airport Fund. The State Airport Fund has a number of projects that are on the list, and we're authorizing spending in Carlton County for an airport hangar. We're authorizing the building of a Civil Air Patrol facility here in St. Paul at Home and Field. We're authorizing improvements on the Duluth Airport, and we are authorizing improvements for security at the Rochester Airport. And finally, St. Cloud has a study for their airport. I mentioned the State Trooper Academy already. There is special permitting in this bill for trucks. We've had an issue with milk trucks, especially in southeastern Minnesota, and Chair Draskowski brought forward a bill that addresses that, and that's in this bill. We also have an authorization to allow heavier weights for trucks involved in construction projects. That will actually make construction projects cheaper because our trucks become more efficient when they can carry a little more weight. We are requiring that the Minnesota Department of Transportation investigate finding more efficiencies in their work, and they have guaranteed us that they can find a 15% savings on most projects, and we appreciate that. There's a number of items in here that take a look at reforming the way the department does prioritize their projects and identify which projects have the highest priority. We're happy to encourage them to do that. We do also address the Safe Routes to School program with significantly more funding of about $2 million. With that, Mr. Speaker, I've covered the highlights of the bill, and I'm happy to stand for questions or to move on to amendments.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Torkelson moves to amend House File Number 861, the fourth engrossment, and the amendment is coded A40.
The gentleman from Renville, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A40 is a technical amendment. We had some errors in the spreadsheet that needed to be repaired. Staff discovered them, has drafted this amendment to fix the bill and get it in the order that we would like. I would urge a green vote on the A40.
Discussion to the amendment. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Bernardi moves to amend House File Number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A17-0332.
The lady from Anoka, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an amendment that Representative Kunish-Pudin and I are doing for our community. It's sitting on the calendar of the day already. It's been passed through the Transportation Committee. The Senate has included it in their Omnibus bill, so we're marrying them up, and it allows our community to have the DMV that currently exists to become a full-service DMV where people can actually get their license renewed. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your support. And Chair Torkelson, do I yield to you how would you like me to handle that? Okay, I'd like to yield to Representative Torkelson.
The gentleman from Redwood, Chairman Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Bernardi, I'm afraid that I was unable to hear your remarks because of the noise in the hall. Could you just once again review which amendment we're on?
The lady from Ramsey, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are on the DMV amendment for the community of New Brighton.
The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Bernardi. Yes, this is a fine amendment. I'm happy to encourage everyone to vote green. This has been approved by the registrars that do this work. They feel there's a need there in New Brighton, and we're happy to support your effort to get an office there in New Brighton. Please vote green.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment. And the last amendment was adopted.
Bernardi moves to amend House Bill number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A17-0337.
The lady from Anoka, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment is a performance measure bill to help our state get the most for its dollars in our transportation funding. Hopefully, we'll lead the session and we will get more transportation dollars to make our transportation system, modernize it, to repair it, and to make it competitive with our peers, actually around the country and maybe even around the world too. And what this does is, it would be in addition to the funding, so it doesn't address the funding, but it's about accountability and transparency and really working with the public to be able to connect what we as a state want to get out of our transportation system. And I want to give it a shout out to all of our engineers, whether they're our state engineers or our planners or people in our counties and our cities, for all the work they do. I believe that they can solve problems and are able to make things happen in the best interest of the community and the state. And what this does is help tie our state goals to performance measures, because oftentimes you do what you measure. And when you have performance measures that you set a target, this is what our goal is annually, and then identify where we're at, where are the gaps, so that you can be transparent with the public on what we're trying to achieve, work with the public to actually identify those performance measures. And we've gotten really close to getting this through, and I'm still hopeful, Chair Torkelson, that we actually can get it through this year. I know that you have a commitment to keep working on this, and I appreciate that. I think it's a great time to do it now when there's going to be more funding for transportation. So what I would like to do is encourage you all to get behind this. It has bipartisan support from both sides, and I've worked with both sides of the aisle to get this passed. I am going to withdraw it right now, and want to thank Representative Torkelson for being able to continue working with me on this, and I just want to have the request that maybe it could actually happen this year. I'm holding out hope, and you know I never give up that hope, right, Chair Torkelson? Thank you.
The amendment has been withdrawn. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Zerwas moves to amend House File number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A17-0340.
The gentleman from Wright, Representative Zerwas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the A17-0340 amendment is a housekeeping amendment brought to me by the Minnesota State Patrol. It deals with adopting the 2015 school bus safety standards. I ask for a green vote.
Discussion to the Zerwas amendment. The gentleman from Redwood, Chairman Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This was a bill that was heard in a couple of committees, got positive remarks, and I'd urge a green vote on the Zerwas amendment.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Halverson moves to amend House File number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A32.
The lady from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, members, for hearing this amendment. This has been brought forward in bill form to a couple committees over the years. It has not received any opposition. This bill takes some old language that is currently in public safety rules that actually prohibits buses that stop in a right-hand turn lane to pick up or drop off students from using their flashing lights or stop arms. And the practical effect of this rule has been that in communities like mine, where these bus stops are, they're very rare, but the practical effect is that cars are going around these buses that are not using their safety signals and putting students' lives in danger. And so this just enhances some safety. And I have to say, when I brought this to the Transportation Committee this year, it was made better with an amendment from Representative McDonald, who brought forward a similar standard for bike lanes. This is something that's new since these rules were written, and so this further enhances safety of bus stops that might intersect with bike lanes as well. I would appreciate your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Discussion. The gentleman from Renville, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Halverson, for bringing this forward. This is a good idea. Anything to improve the safety of our students who ride buses is a welcome addition, and I urge a aye vote.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Say no. The amendment is adopted. The A32 amendment, there's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hornstein moves to amend House File Number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A33.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. The A33 amendment relates to liability limits that are now being lifted, or liability that's being capped on freight railroads that are operating in light rail corridors. But it's much more than that, members and Mr. Speaker. We'll get to that in a minute. My concern over several years here related to rail safety was spurred on by a massive catastrophe that took place in Quebec several years ago. And what happened is that a car carrying oil from North Dakota actually exploded in the middle of a town, killing 47 people. And what we found out over the course of the investigation of this tragedy is that the rail company, not a large rail company, a short line company, was not carrying adequate liability insurance. And so the taxpayers and the public sector in that community bore the costs of the damage, which exceeded $1 billion. And since that incident, I've been very concerned about the lack of adequate railroad liability insurance here in the United States. And I've been raising questions over these years. And it just happened that earlier this session, we were going over a rail safety report that the Department of Public Safety prepared in Chair Torkelson's committee. And I asked the railroad industry and our agencies, what kind of liability insurance are railroads carrying in Minnesota? No one could answer the question. No one from the public sector, no one from the private sector. So I was increasingly concerned about this problem. Then lo and behold, towards the end of session, right before bill deadline, within a few days of bill deadline, a provision pops up, a bill pops up that lifts and liability caps or limits liability for these for freight railroads in light rail corridors where there's co-location with light rail. So if there's an accident caused by the freight rail company, their liability is capped. And who foots the bill? The taxpayer. That's unfair. That's fundamentally unfair. And so this amendment brings us back to the status quo, which hopefully we can begin to address. Now, the Federal FAST Act, the Federal Transportation Bill that was passed last year, does have a study that will discuss this issue of railroad liability. Some of the smaller railroads have been in conversations with the larger railroads about cost sharing when it comes to liability. And so this simply gets us back to the status quo, because what we're doing in our bill, members, which is so concerning to me, is we're now codifying in state law that these railroad companies won't have to pay in the event of a spill or an explosion or a fire that causes the kinds of damage that we could see that we witnessed in Quebec. And so I understand that folks are concerned about the impact on some of these smaller railroads, as am I. But we need to make sure that the public and citizens are protected in case of an accident. And so, members, we're simply going back to the status quo with this amendment. We're not codifying in state law the, I think, massive, almost subsidy that these railroads would receive by us forgiving their liability needs. And with that, members, I would ask for a green vote, and I'd also ask for a roll call.
Roll call having been requested. Are the 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the A33 amendment. The gentleman from Redwood, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for noting all of my counties. I do appreciate it, and so do my counties that I represent. First off, this freight rail line has been operating in this corridor. They've been operating much longer, but in this corridor, they've been operating there since 1998, and they've been operating there safely. Even the Met Council, and you should have gotten this handout, says light rail won't pose a threat of train explosions. I was a little surprised that the Met Council is on my side, but in this case they are. As far as liability goes, this railroad does carry liability insurance. They always have, they always will, and their liability is still available should there be an accident. But what's happened here is that the planners here in the metropolitan area have decided for some reason that it's a good idea to put the light rail in the same corridor as this freight rail has been operating since 1998 and operating safely. This puts them in a position where this freight rail has a significantly higher risk. Now, this situation has occurred before in the state of Minnesota when the North Star commuter line was established that leaves Twin Stadium and heads to the northwest toward St. Cloud, doesn't quite get there, of course. There was action taken here in this body and at the state of Minnesota to limit the liability of the Burlington Northern, where they are working in the same corridor as the commuter rail. So a precedent has been set, a precedent where we do recognize that this liability, increase in liability in a corridor where passenger rail and freight rail share the same corridor, that we as a state recognize that it's not appropriate for the railroad to have unlimited liability in these situations. So the freight rail will continue to operate just as they always have in this corridor. Much of the time they'll be operating all by themselves, and if something should happen, it will be handled just as it's been handled in the past. However, if and when the light rail comes in and occupies this same space, the situation changes dramatically, and we are protecting this freight rail from a very unusual situation where they could be sued completely out of existence. Just a little bit about the Twin City and Western Railroad. It has many clients all across southwestern Minnesota, all the way into South Dakota. The 20 largest clients they have combined annual sales of $4 billion, and Twin City and Western actually ships about $1.5 billion worth of goods from these clients. These clients have a combined total of 2,660 employees, and they do a tremendous amount of business here in Minnesota. They are very important to the agriculture industry, and this railroad also handles aggregate, which is important to building the roads and railroads that this metropolitan area depends on. They have been operating safely, and they need to get through the city in order to connect with the Class 1 railroads that pick up the cars that they bring in, and it's absolutely appropriate that they be able to continue to operate in a way that is affordable, and at the same time they do carry liability insurance, have always and always will. And Representative Hornstein did mention the fact that the federal government is looking at this. We have to remember that railroads are federally regulated, and they are looking at and studying this liability situation. Certainly this corridor in Minnesota is not the only one. It's not the only one in Minnesota. Of course, there are many examples across the country where freight and passenger rail operate in the same corridor. And in fact, should the next proposed light rail project move forward, Bottineau line, there will be an even more extensive distance of co-location of passenger and freight rail. And it's up to us to properly address the liability situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Discussion, the lady from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You just have to find the humor in this bill because there would be a lot to be depressed about. And one of the bits of humor on the subject we're just discussing, if you read page 84 of the bill, it says a regional rail authority, a metropolitan county, a home rule charter or statutory city, any of those are prohibited from spending any money to study, plan, design, or construct a light rail transit line or expand an existing light rail transit line unless the legislature has explicitly authorized the particular project. So we're going to take all the ability for local cities to have a chance to study what might be happening in their town relative to transportation systems that help them. But in the same bill, we're going to protect freight rail from liability if that line gets built. It's just an interesting juxtaposition of almost conflicting thoughts that somehow we need to protect the freight rail as though this is ever going to happen.
The gentleman from Ramsey, Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Torkelson yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Torkelson, can you tell me, when this came into civil law, you had commented that it was extremely fresh. And I remember you used that word fresh because it rhymes with lesh. But you used it a couple of times, actually. And I couldn't figure out, because it sort of came out of the blue. We'd scheduled a meeting in civil law, and this got on, and I think it was within 24 hours or something. Now I know that when the situation occurred with North Star, that had discussion over a long period of time about the discussions of why. And we didn't have a lot of time to really discuss this or consider it. Can you tell me how it is that you ended up getting this bill? Did someone bring it to you, or how is it that the discussion came to your attention?
The gentleman from Redwood, Chair Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Lesh. I did describe the bill as fresh, and I know it does rhyme with lesh, but I would never insinuate that lesh is fresh. I'm beginning to feel like Dr. Seuss here. You know, I've described the importance of this freight rail line to my district and to the state of Minnesota. The issue was brought to me by them, frankly, because they understood, they had investigated this situation with the North Star corridor, realized it could have an impact on how they would be looked at should some liability case come forward, and I was happy to try and address their needs. And while the bill, when it came to civil law, was fresh, it is no longer fresh, Lesh. It's gotten kind of stale.
The gentleman from Ramsey, Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Torkelson yield to another question?
The gentleman will yield. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Torkelson. I guess the reason I asked the question is that we've had this discussion about where Southwest Light Rail line was going to go for years. I mean, I don't know how many years, Someone to know. Hold up a number, 5 years, 6 years, whatever. But that route was known for 5 years. So, and I know with the situation with North Star, I mean, that had been brought up with the reasonable anticipation. So I'm assuming that maybe this railroad was attempting to exhaust remedies in other areas that maybe collapsed or something, and so they chose to come in and ask the legislature. Do you have any information about that?
The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Lesh. I do not have information on that. All I know is what's been brought to me, and it looks to me like a real issue. I do know, however, Representative Lesh, that negotiations between the freight rail and the Met Council or whoever is negotiating on the light rail side are ongoing.
Okay, well,
The gentleman from Ramsey, Representative Lesh.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very familiar with ongoing negotiations with the Met Council because a partnership of which I am a part of had those ongoing, arduous discussions for a long time, which resulted in litigation. And I'm not alone. There are hundreds of businesses along existing or proposed light rail lines in the Twin Cities that are affected and impacted unilaterally by decisions. And sometimes it's not fair. But I guess I can't figure out when this arrived. It arrived so late, so fresh, as you say. It seemed a little weird as to how this came up so suddenly. And I remarked to the railroad owner who was sitting there in committee, I said, congratulations on having such outstanding influence with the House Republican caucus where you can swoop in and say, I need this to help my railroad out, and they'll deliver. That's a great angle to have. But members, this just does not look good because, like I said, there are a lot of other businesses out there that could have used probably some kind of relief. And so if you're talking about setting a precedent, it probably ought to have been much broader than railroads. If you're the friend of small business, as you say you are, the silence was deafening when light rail went through on the green line or the blue line. Deafening. And a lot of those businesses failed. No one came in and swooped in to give them a liability waiver or assistance like what's happening now. And when you pick one, you pick a railroad. I just think it looks pretty bad. I think that Representative Hornstein's amendment speaks to that. And if nothing else, we should take a little bit more time to determine that, because I completely disagree with the idea that we set a precedent with North Star, therefore we have to do it with this railroad. If you're setting a precedent, you should probably be helping out a lot of other businesses. I ask for a green vote in the Hornstein amendment.
Discussion. The gentleman from Redwood, Chair Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Lesh. This bill came through the normal process. It made deadline. It's a real issue, and while I sympathize with other businesses, in fact, in our bill, we are taking a look at trying to limit the eminent domain authority of the Met Council when it comes to capturing properties that belong to others. We're happy to do that. I'm also happy to try and do what I can to make sure that a business in my district that affects my district and my industry is properly accommodated. No different accommodation than has happened in earlier cases with the North Star commuter line. This is not unusual, and it's been handled appropriately, and we've had lots of time to work on it. And in fact, as I recall, discussions continue today. And by the way, you know, this all sounds like full employment for lawyers to me.
Discussion. The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Just a couple of concluding comments here before we vote. Just wanted to respond to some of the debate here. This North Star analogy, I agree with Representative Lesh. It's an apples and oranges comparison. These corridors are very different. North Star runs on the same track. It's much less frequent. The geography is very different. But it also doesn't make it right either. When I learned about that, I was very concerned that they got the same kind of liability waiver. So we are doing a special favor for a special interest. That's ultimately what this inclusion in the transportation bill is. That's why I'm trying to take it out. This is a cost of doing business having adequate liability insurance. And I think we could reduce the risks of this. The hazardous materials, which are not a majority of the freight, it's grains, it's agricultural commodities. I don't have a lot of problem with that. It's the hazardous materials. Those could be routed around the city. But when we talk about that, the company says, no, absolutely not. Many kinds of requests we've made of them, and the big boys as well. It's not just the Class 3s, it's the big boys. When we make basic safety requests, basic requests for transparency and information, they go unanswered. It's invariably the answer is no. You go up against these railroads, you realize that not much has changed since the days of James J. Hill. And there were no fewer than 7 lobbyists at this hearing, and that's almost like Twin Stadium numbers of lobbyists. So this is clearly going to benefit them very handsomely, financially, and we can do better than this. And while Representative Torkelson agrees with the Met Council on this, I would have a different opinion from them on this particular issue. So please, members, let's vote for the public interest and the taxpayers and against the corporations on this one. Please vote green.
The gentleman from Renville, Chair Torkelson.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry to belabor this one, but it really is important. A list of products that this railroad handles: corn, soybeans, wheat, sugar, vegetables, ethanol, crushed rock, metals, plastics, fuel oil, machinery, lumber, manufactured goods, and fertilizer. If you know anything about railroads, you know that they have to take whatever people want them to take. They are a common carrier. As far as the liability situation goes, when this bill was first proposed, it was much more limited. We have now broadened it out so that it goes to the full limits of their liability should an incident occur. And finally, as to how they operate, they are voluntarily operating at 10 miles an hour in this corridor. They have run their trains extremely slow because it makes it a much safer situation. However, when the light rail comes in, they will be operating at speeds up to 45 miles an hour, more than 4 times as fast. This, as I've said earlier, creates a situation that's being thrust upon this railroad. I'm happy to bring this forward, and I urge a red vote on the Hornstein amendment.
Discussion. The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 51 ayes and 77 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment to the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hornstein moves to amend House File Number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A35.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. Here's another real one. This may be a little less controversial. We've done this before, increasing the number of rail inspectors in our state. And I referenced earlier that Chair Torkelson and I both introduced rail safety bills earlier this session, quite similar bills, actually. Chair Torkelson's bill was almost verbatim a bill that we unanimously and bipartisanly supported and voted on the last night of session. I made some improvements to that bill based on some conversations with some of our state partners, but neither bill was heard. The chair didn't hear his own bill. He didn't hear my bill, and those bills were important, members, because they helped close a communication gap between first responders and railroads. There's not a lot of, we need to have a better communication system between the first responders and railroads so they know they can keep us safe, they can keep the public safe. So those bills didn't get heard. Unfortunately, the provision we just talked about was the rail bill that got heard. So what I'd like to do here is at least get something fairly substantive on rail safety into this bill. And we have our rail inspector regime here is paid for by the railroads. That's what they do. There's a small assessment on the railroads for the safety inspectors. And I want you to take a look at this chart. Minnesota has a high number of track miles. And yet the number of inspectors that we have is proportionally less than many other states. So, for example, Minnesota has 4 state rail inspectors for 4,450 track miles. California has 39 for 5,295. And then you've got, followed by Washington and West Virginia, 9 and 8 respectively, 3,000 miles of track for them. So we're not doing well in this area compared to other states. And so in Representative Torkelson's bill, he proposes 2 additional rail inspectors, up to 2 more. The governor had a provision in his transportation bill for up to 6 more. So in this amendment, we just sort of split the difference. We split the difference between you, Chair Torkelson, and the governor, and I think that's reasonable. So that's the amendment. Members, when we talk about rail safety, the best thing we can do, the best investment we can make is to have rail inspectors. They're the ones that can find problems before they occur, communicate with the railroads, correct those, and this is where we get our best bang for our buck in terms of rail safety. So I simply would ask that we support these up to 4 additional. It could be 1, it could be 2. We're putting a cap on this, up to 4 additional rail safety inspectors for the state of Minnesota under the employ of MnDOT. I would ask for your support, and I would also ask for a roll call on this vote.
Roll call having been requested. Are the 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the Hornstein A35 amendment. The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hornstein. You noted that we do share a concern for this issue, but my concern is that it be worked out in a way that all the parties involved are happy and satisfied and can work with the language that is going to be passed into law. We didn't quite get there. We thought we had it at the end of session last year. You'll remember that this was amended onto another bill of mine that we're going to talk probably more about later, but that didn't get across the finish line. In the interim, we've discovered that there still was some discrepancy about the language and how it would affect the various parties involved. And in fact, we talked earlier about how fresh my bill about railroad liability was. Well, this bill was even fresher, Representative Hornstein. Your bill was introduced on March 9th. I believe, or 9th, and of course deadline was the 10th. So there really wasn't time to get it properly moved through the various committees. As far as railroad inspections, it's not just state inspectors. We have federal inspectors, and the railroads themselves have inspectors. And in fact, the safety record of all railroads in Minnesota is extremely good. We have had very few incidences, and I can hope and pray, of course, that continues to stay that way. Accidents can happen, but our railroads run quite safely. I am committed to continue to working this out, and once we get language that all parties involved will agree to, we will get this signed into law. But today is not the day, to quote a good friend of mine. With that, I would urge a nay vote on we're voting, this is a roll call, a red vote, Mr. Speaker.
Discussion to the Hornstein amendment. The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 55 ayes and 73 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Dean R. moves to amend House File Number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A41.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Dean R.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. What my amendment does is it actually sets up a grant program in this section for bridges, for actually major local bridges. Currently, there's a provision in Article 3 of the bill on page 71 that sets up the maximum grant for bridges at $7 million. Oftentimes there are larger, not oftentimes, but occasionally, there are larger cost bridges that happen in the metro area, and this, the current language would prohibit those bridges from being funded from within this fund. And I passed around a list of the large bridges relative to the local bridges replacement fund in the bonding fund. And if you look at it, you'll see in the past few years there's been a total of 3 bridges over $7 million, and actually a majority of these bridges are quite less than even $1 million. So I understand the need to fund bridges throughout the state, some of these lower cost, less expensive bridges to repair, but we have to think about the whole state, because currently there are 2 bridges in the bonding bill, one for St. Paul, the Lafayette Bridge, which is asking for roughly $40 million, and then the 10th Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis, the one that was actually the reliever bridge for when the 35W bridge collapsed, of $30 million. And these are critical bridges, and according to both Minneapolis and St. Paul, they don't have any other large bridges of this magnitude sort of in their queue over the next several years that are going to need repairs or rehabilitation. So I'm submitting this to be included in the transportation bill. I'll also be submitting it to be included in the bonding bill.
Discussion. The gentleman from Redwood, Chairman Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Dean. You know, I've seen both of these bridges up close and personal, as have you, but I was listening closely to your remarks, and I know you're from Minneapolis, but the bridge in St. Paul is not the Lafayette Bridge. It's the Kellogg Bridge. And I know that I'm sure you're focused on the geography of Minneapolis right now. I understand that completely, as you should be. But in St. Paul, the bridge that needs to be repaired is Kellogg, not Lafayette. Lafayette, as I recall, is done. It looks great. It's got pretty lights, just like 35W. So I share your concern about these bridges that need to be addressed, but I believe this is best done by setting up a large bridge fund in the bonding bill. I will support your efforts and advocate to the Capital Investment Chair that be part of his work this year, but it just does not fit in our transportation bill. We just don't have the money, frankly. With that, if we're going to vote, I would urge a nay, but I believe there's another speaker, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from McLeod, Chairman Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members, and Representative Dean. I think it's a legitimate concern that you have. With the two bills that you cited, if we looked at last year's bonding bill, I think there was $90 million in the bridge fund, and if your figures are correct, they might be a little high, but if we use yours, we're talking $70 million for two bridges, leaving $20 million for the rest of the bridges of the state of Minnesota. And that's why Representative Torkelson had the cap amendment that he had. But I think we do need to look at the whole state. It may be appropriate, as you are suggesting, to look at a large bridge fund. And as we go through the capital investment process, I think we'll take a good look at that. Certainly, I think there is the intention to put significant funding into the bill for local roads and bridges.
Discussion. The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Dean R.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first off, my apologies to my colleagues from St. Paul, Kellogg, Lafayette. You know, remember what Jesse said about St. Paul. So I'll just leave it at that. It was just that the roads are hard to figure out. You all that live here during the session, you know what I'm talking about. You know, I'd like to thank you, Chair Torkelson, and thank you, Chair Erdahl. My understanding that currently within the proposed dollar amount for the local bridges section of the bonding bill, I believe that there's actually enough money to fund almost all of those projects with some left over. So maybe with this additional money here in the transportation bill, we'll be able to get to the point where we can fund both the 10th Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis and the Kellogg Bridge in St. Paul. So at this moment, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pull my amendment.
Amendment has been withdrawn. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Torkelson moves to amend House Bill number 861, the fourth engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A36.
The gentleman from Brown, Chairman Torkelson.
Thank you. The A36 amendment deals with the passenger rail to Northfield and Albert Lee. This actually was drafted, I believe, by Representative Bly, but I feel it's important that we address the issue here on the House floor, and I would request a roll call.
Roll call having been requested. Are the 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call discussion. The lady from Anoka, Representative Hortman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This maneuver shows just how serious Republicans are about working in a bipartisan way to try to enact a transportation bill. Not serious at all. There's been absolutely zero effort to engage with Democrats to seriously put together a transportation bill that we could all get behind that would provide sustainable, reliable funding that's constitutionally dedicated to transportation. Representative Bly withdrew this amendment precisely for the reason that the funding is not appropriate. So it's, you know, we can play this game, Representative Torkelson, but what you're showing is really how the level of interest and effort that you're putting into actually getting a transportation bill done this year. You'd rather play politics, you'd rather play games than do any kind of serious work on a serious bill. Members, please vote no.
Discussion. The gentleman from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker. And Representative Torkelson, I decided to bring the amendment at first not knowing exactly how to fund it. I got some research advice that there was $8.5 million that could help me. However, it turns out it's in the Trunk Highway Fund, and I recognize that that would be unconstitutional. Not to say that other funding hasn't been unconstitutional. but I don't want to do that. I'm also aware that you announced that you were going to kill the passenger rail office in MnDOT and take that money and use it somewhere else. This is very short-sighted, and I was hoping to speak to this on third reading, but it's very short-sighted. I think that what I've discovered in my efforts to try to help my community and communities along this corridor and across the state, and by the way, my amendment would not only have helped out my community in that corridor, it would also have helped Duluth. It would have helped other efforts that are trying to bring back passenger rail. I don't know if you know the history of what happened with passenger rail. When we built highways and the automotive industry was growing, they decided that they were going to kill passenger rail, and because they wanted to build cars and build highways and build roads, and trains weren't appropriate anymore, they thought. Well, we learned that there's tremendous pollution in the air caused by cars. And we've done, even in this state, we've done things to try to reduce that pollution by funding farmers to grow corn, to do ethanol, to clean up the air, to deal with pollution. There's a simpler way to do that, really, to go back to a way of transportation that takes cars off the roads. It allows passengers who don't have vehicles, who want to travel inner city, to do that. It also connects us to a growing, and other states are ahead of us with this. Even Wisconsin is investing in inner city passenger rail. We need to get on board if we want to compete, if we want to attract jobs, if we want to grow. We need to get involved with the passenger rail initiatives. It's short-sighted. It's wrong-headed. People want to make use of passenger rail again. We have one Amtrak line that goes through the state, goes to Seattle. There's no other way. There's one line that goes to Chicago, that same line. We'd like to have another line to go to Chicago. We'd like to connect into the east-west passenger rail lines that go from the East Coast to the West Coast. We can't do that. One of the fastest growing economic areas is Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas. Right now, there isn't a connection that goes there, but there could be when we start investing in passenger rail in this country. I wish you would reconsider killing the passenger rail office. It's important. If you care about jobs, if you care about the economy, if you care about the environment, which I don't have much evidence of that you do, but if you did, you'd be interested in this. Thank you.
The lady from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm just surprised that this took the direction it did. If there's one more thing to be discouraged about in this debate, it is the direction this has taken. All over the state, people want transportation alternatives. We had a letter from, I believe, the Mankato Chamber of Commerce asking for Representative Bly's bill to be heard. Representative Haley has a bill for the Chicago to Twin Cities line. We know Hastings and Red Wing and Winona are all part of that effort. Everywhere, people want to be connected, whether you're in Rochester or Duluth or St. Cloud or Mankato or Northfield. And there are grassroots organizing efforts everywhere. It's coming, again, right out of the communities, asking for transportation alternatives. And it becomes particularly crucial given the aging population that we know is happening all around the state. We have to be prepared. We have to look for those transportation alternatives. And by the way, again, just as in transit, we're out of step with the country. Do you know that Wisconsin has actually put their money on the table already for that link? Wisconsin. Because we haven't, the lines now go to Kansas City, St. Louis. They're all moving forward. And Minnesota is, for some strange reason, out of step with the whole country. even though now the business community and the chambers have started weighing in. So I am very sorry that it seems that people think this would be somehow a bad vote to indicate that you support this transportation alternative, when I think on a bipartisan basis, there's an understanding of this.
Discussion. The lady from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Is an amendment out of order if it violates the Constitution?
Mr. Speaker.
According to Mason's legislative manual, it is not within the province of the chair to decide as to the constitutionality of an amendment. The lady from Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I strongly encourage you to vote no on this amendment. It violates the Constitution. We have constitutionally dedicated revenue for roads and bridges, and that is a good system. Other states that don't have that have continuing problems funding their transportation system. And for the reason that this bill is so woefully inadequate is why we should not touch our constitutionally dedicated funds. The biggest problem with the bill that Chair Torkelson brought to the House floor is there is not $1 of new dedicated constitutionally dedicated funds for transportation. This means that the only money that Chair Torkelson's proposing to put into transportation is money he's taking from K-12 schools, he's taking from Health and Human Services. So, members, if you vote green on this amendment, you're voting to violate the Minnesota Constitution and our long-held sacred practice of protecting state transportation dollars that we collect in the form of the gas tax, the motor vehicle sales tax, and tab fees, and diverting those funds to another purpose. And that would violate the Minnesota Constitution. Please vote no.
Discussion. The gentleman from Sherburne, Representative Newberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if Representative Nash would yield for a question.
The gentleman will yield. The gentleman from Sherburne.
Representative Nash, what is your favorite color? And just as a side note, what is your wife's favorite color?
The gentleman from Carver, Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Newberger, this reminds me of a scene from Monty Python movie, but I'm going to go with blue and blue.
The gentleman from Sherburne, Representative Newberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Nash. Well, the reason why I ask this is because if you take the North Star rail, which is taxpayer subsidized, and if you just do a quick average, it's about, the taxpayers pay about $40 roughly for each ride for each person. So if we times that by 5 days a week, if you're going to work every day, times that by 4 weeks out of the month, the taxpayers pick up about $800 a month. Right now, you can lease a brand new Mercedes-Benz for $299 a month. So, Representative Nash, the taxpayers could lease you a blue Mercedes-Benz and your wife a blue Mercedes-Benz, and as a bonus, there'd be $200 left over. Members, that's what shows, that just demonstrates the absurdity of subsidizing this rail line transport.
Discussion. The gentleman from Redwood, Chair Torkelson.
Well, thank you. We've had a lively discussion here about rails and constitutions, et cetera. This discussion really is about what's affordable and what's appropriate and what really works in today's economy and with today's technology. We all know that technology is changing very quickly. How we get from place to place is likely to change too. When railroad proposals are affordable and useful, they will probably get due consideration, but today is not the day. Please vote red on my amendment.
Discussion. The clerk will take the roll on the A36 amendment. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being one aye and 125 nays, the amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 861, as amended.
Third reading. To the bill. The gentleman from Blue Earth, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and I hope that last debate doesn't foretell how serious we take, which where I live is a really serious problem, and not only a really serious problem where I live, but across the state of Minnesota. Yesterday, we heard another silly amendment from the other side, which led me to say that I didn't recall any testimony before the House Transportation Committee this year, the year before that, or the year before that, that suggested that it would be good public policy for the state of Minnesota to have building roads and bridges compete in the general fund against funding schools and basic funding for essential human services. I did hear in all of those years, and certainly this year again, a lot of testimony from many people saying we need new constitutionally dedicated funding for roads and bridges if we're really going to move Minnesota forward in the years to come. That testimony came from the Commissioner of Transportation. It came from our cities, it came from our counties, and it came from our townships. And so what we're embarking here on is really a new policy that seems to only have support on the Republican side of the aisle in the House of Representatives, as far as I know, based on testimony over 4 years before the House Transportation Finance Committee. Would Representative Torkelson stand for a question?
He will. The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson, C.
My first question, Representative Torkelson, is can you tell me, and I just want this clear and on the record, how much new constitutionally dedicated money is in this bill for building roads and bridges?
The gentleman from Redwood, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Johnson. That all depends on how the revenue input to these various funds that are dedicated to roads comes in this year. You know as well as I do that these funds that are dedicated to transportation constitutionally vary from year to year. There will be probably some new money. We're in an upcycle in the economy, so there will be some new dedicated money. In another year, there may be less dedicated money. But every year, the roads need money. And after what happened in the last biennium, that need is even more acute. And with the surplus we have in our state budget today, much of that surplus which would not be there had we gotten our work done with the transportation bill last year, I believe it's absolutely appropriate that we can use general fund for roads. There's nothing wrong with it, but I'll also be happy to use every dollar of those dedicated funds. That will be probably a few more dollars than we had in the last biennium.
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson, C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Representative Torkelson rise to another question?
The gentleman will yield. The gentleman from Nicollet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Torkelson. I'll ask the question a little differently. I guess I think my guess is you know what I'm talking about. Well, I'll try it again. Are there any change items in this finance bill that would increase constitutionally dedicated money in this bill for roads and bridges?
The gentleman from Renville, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Johnson. I think what you're trying to ask me is, am I dedicating any more sources of revenue constitutionally to fund roads and bridges? I'm not dedicating any new streams of funding constitutionally to fund roads and bridges, but I sure am interested in funding roads and bridges.
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson, C.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to be clear, Representative. I think you know I'm not questioning your motives. I know you do. You know, I try to be a student of history. I used to teach history teachers and taught a little history myself, and I was trying to think back to when we started the gas tax in Minnesota, and I was not aware of any major transportation bill, of what this one's called a substantial or a significant transportation bill, that did not have a gas tax increase. And would Representative Torkelson rise to another question?
Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Torkelson, are you aware of any major transportation bill, substantial or comprehensive or significant as this bill has been described, in the history since the gas tax was first started that did not include any kind of gas tax increase?
The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you. I have not researched this personally. I have not asked anyone else to research it for me, but I was told, and I was told by a lobbyist, so you have to take it with a grain of salt, that it's been 29 years since a major transportation bill has passed that did not include a gas tax increase.
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you. And then the problem I have with this, and I think the problem Minnesotans have with this, and the problem that people who testified before our committee, person after person representing cities, townships, counties, et cetera, have with it, is the lack of stability for this, for the funding for the roads, should the economy go south, if there's problems with financing, or the problem with the competition that it runs against education and human services and other general fund needs. Would the Representative Torkelson rise for one more question?
He shall. The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
I believe that 6 years ago, there was a major deficit facing the state of Minnesota and really presented some tough budget problems facing the state. I can't imagine. I didn't serve then. I felt it back home. And the citizens felt that budget deficit. We felt it a lot, especially, I think, in rural Minnesota. But I'd like to ask if this were the situation, if this were 5 or 6 years ago, would you have presented this same bill before that legislature?
The gentleman from Brown, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Representative Johnson. I wasn't a chair 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know what bill I would have presented at that time. As you know, times certainly were different at that time. But I've wrestled with this question of, is the fact that we use dedicated funds, not exclusively, but dedicated funds, constitutionally dedicated funds for transportation, been helpful or harmful in getting a substantial transportation bill passed in the state of Minnesota? My conclusion is it's actually been harmful. We continually argue about whether or not the dollars we're going to use are constitutionally dedicated. I don't think the contractors or the people that drive on the roads or the people that, or the roads themselves as far as that goes, care one iota where those dollars come from. They want the dollars to be there. And frankly, over the last few bienniums, they haven't been there. And part of the reason they haven't been there is because we spend our time arguing about whether or not they're the right kind of dollars, if they're constitutionally dedicated or not. Let's get funds to our road projects and get them built. That's what I'm about. Thank you, Representative Johnson and Mr.
Gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps you were absent when the contractors did come before the committee and talked about the need for long-term dedicated funding to make sure that they can proceed. I know I've talked to a major contractor in my region who is facing right now, he's facing layoffs. And the problem for him is that he's laying off some very quality people, and it will create problems for that company down the road. And in conversations, and which mimics the testimony that we've heard in the committee over the last several years, is that our contractors do want sustainable funds, dedicated funds, so that they know that those are they are there, so they can make those huge investments that they need to make in their companies to move forward. But I'd like to ask if Representative Torkelson would rise for another question.
He will yield again. The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Torkelson, if there were a $6 billion deficit facing this legislature, would you, as transportation chair, offer this bill to this body?
The gentleman from Renville, Chair Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Johnson. Again, you're asking a hypothetical question that it's very difficult to answer. My job as Chair of Transportation Finance is to get the job done. And in the circumstances that we exist today, and that is what my proposal does, and that's what I intend to do. I'm happy to work with you and others as we move forward through the process. This is not the end of the story, and we'll talk more about this as we wrap up the bill. But I'm dedicated to getting this job done. My door is always open, as you know. I'm willing to listen to your ideas and others, but I'm not willing to say that the only dollar we can spend on roads is a constitutionally dedicated dollar, because that's not the case. In fact, we've been using GO bonds to fund transportation projects for a long, long time. And those GO bonds are financed not by dedicated dollars, they're financed by general fund dollars. Hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of general fund have been going to transportation for years. It's not a new idea.
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I can see why the representative did not answer that question directly, because I think it's fair to say he wouldn't. Because in that environment, this bill would make absolutely no sense. But I do appreciate your words. I appreciate your words, and I think you know that I also share that. Your door is open. I appreciate that. And I do see this, I do understand that this is the start of this process. And I'm an optimist. I'm a Twins fan. The Twins start playing baseball on Monday, Representative Nornes, and I'm excited about this season, and that optimism holds over to a productive transportation bill this session. But the point I want to make today is that this bill is not it. And I think you got the drift through the questioning, that we've got a problem with this bill in that it really does provide severe competition in the general fund, very significant competition that has both long-term and short-term ramifications. Later today, when we discuss the education bill, we will see the ramifications on funding for our schools. Next Friday, I believe we see the Health and Human Services bill, where we will see the ramifications of this sort of spending on basic services that are just drastically needed across the state of Minnesota. And the idea of placing in competition roads and bridges with essential funding that we do for our kids, for our elders, for those with disabilities, the list goes on, is a really big problem with this bill. I'm concerned about the extensive borrowing in this bill. The bill borrows $1 billion, folks, and $1 billion that will be paid back from the general fund. So this is my long-term concern. If we have a problem with a deficit 5-6 years down the road, and we've already borrowed this money to build roads, we will have to pay those bonds back. And this body will be faced with a very draconian decision. Do we pay off the bond houses in New York City? Or do we take care of educating our kids and providing the services that we need for the people of Minnesota? That will be a lousy choice for Minnesota, and that gets set up by the approach used in this bill. That's my primary concern. I also have another concern that's perhaps a little more parochial, but my guess is many members in this body have the same parochial concern. And that is, this bill only suggests that only provides $250 million, or actually $300 million, to be applied towards the corridors of commerce in the next 10 years. Where I live, the corridors of commerce is recognized as a valuable program because it finally built 4 lanes from North Mankato to Nicollet, actually the west end of Nicollet. And I'll tell you, go to the meat market in Nicollet and ask them if they think that's been a good road for that community. Ask anybody in that region. Ask the sheriff of Nicollet County, who testified the other day about safety concerns on the rest of the Highway 14 going to New Ulm, whether that's an important 4-lane road. It is. The corridors of commerce has had a positive impact for us in Nicollet County. It had an impact on I-94. It can have an impact on Highway 10, Highway 23. I won't go through the whole list, but it offers an opportunity, especially in rural Minnesota, and I'll talk about rural Minnesota right now, because it offers an opportunity to provide high-quality infrastructure connecting our regional centers, whether it be New Ulm, Owatonna, Bemidji, Perham, You name it. There's a lot of towns in Minnesota that are dynamic centers where there's opportunity for growth of jobs, good paying jobs, and too many of those towns, including New Ulm, which does not have a 4-lane highway coming in and out of it, lose opportunity to expand that economic development because there's simply not the infrastructure they need to make that economy work better. And this bill falls woefully short by only providing $300 million towards the corridors of commerce over the next 10 years. When I talk about my role, and when I talk to my neighbors about the transportation bill, and actually we talk about transportation a lot in District 19A and District 19B, and I know over in New Ulm they do as well. I say I can't vote for a bill that does not provide a pathway, a sight line for me to see that highway completed 4 lanes from Nicollet to New Ulm. And the testimony of both the sheriff from Nicollet County the other day really stands ready for why I do that. Fundamentally, it's about safety, but it's also about commerce, the lost opportunity of commerce, and I think particularly in rural Minnesota. There's been a lot of discussion throughout the campaign season about developing rural Minnesota, and we're missing an opportunity if we pass this bill. But I also want to talk as a rural member about what goes on with transit in this bill. Because to be real honest, it looks to me like an assault on public transit in this great metropolitan area. You know, as a rural member, I just see the value of a vibrant metropolitan area. I mentioned the Twins. You know, I like to come up to a Twins game, so do my neighbors. I can think of many other opportunities, the many colleges here that our sons and daughters attend. I think of the visits that my neighbors make up to the Twin Cities. Why do they come here? To visit their kids and their grandkids. I think of the trade networks, which are remarkably extensive between a dynamic small metropolitan area called Mankato and this large dynamic international metropolitan area called Minneapolis-St. Paul. And yet there's an assault on this bill against transit in this city, and I don't understand it. It became particularly poignant for me the other day when we heard testimony on the Omnibus bill. And we had some of the most powerful testimony I heard were members of people, just members of the community who ride the bus and ride the train. I also ride the train. I came on the train this morning, and as of this morning, I saw a mother with her child coming on the train. I see frequently people carrying their groceries. They've been to the grocery store. Around here, the people, they use the train and the bus to just do their basic daily activities. To assault that system by these massive cuts in the transit system does not support this metropolitan area, a metropolitan area that provides important tax revenue that has benefit across the state of Minnesota. It's really short-sighted and wrong-headed. You know, a lot of times we'll hear that, oh, well, you know, sometimes people will say, well, why support light rail? Why support the transit system here? Because, you know, if you're out in rural Minnesota, you never ride it. Well, that's like say, why support Highway 14 if you don't drive on Highway 14? We're a huge state. We're talking about providing a transportation system that benefits the entire state of Minnesota. This bill does not do it. It creates competition needlessly creates competition against funding for schools, essential services. It does not provide the energy we need to further develop rural Minnesota, and it seems to put the brakes on the development of a vibrant economy in the city of Minneapolis-St. Paul in this metropolitan area. Where I live, and there's a couple of lines that I think apply, and these phrases, by the way, are applied to transportation frequently in New Ulm and Nicollet. One comes from New Ulm, the other comes from Nicollet. New Ulm, they say, get her done. In Nicollet, they say, do it right. This bill does neither. I encourage a no vote.
The lady from Ramsey, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to focus on two things in the bill. One is the debt and then the debt service needed. And so I distributed to your desks kind of 10 years out. In committee, we saw 4 years out, but it always seems to me helpful to know exactly what is the impact in the future. So you see the one line, the debt on the $1 billion, and then the debt on the $300 million. Now that number has changed slightly since MnDOT did this. But it appears that the debt service increases until 2023. That's the high point when it's 91 million debt service. And for the 300 million, the high year is 2021, a little over 27 million. I always think it's helpful to know when you are voting for $1.3 billion of debt, what is going to be required every year. And in this case, in a sense, it comes out of the general fund, flows through this fund, and into the trunk highway fund. And one just has to hope that once we've set up something like this, that we don't have a future legislature that suddenly faces unanticipated economic challenges and starts looking around for how we can redo pots of money that we've assigned other places. We've gone through that before when we've had the couple of years of shifts and gimmicks and borrowing. And so we hope we don't have that in our future. But I just thought it was important for you to see what will be the impact every year for debt service on that $1.3 billion of borrowing. This morning's paper had an article with some very, very good news. The title of the article, this is the Star Tribune this morning, $24 million in transit grants headed out state. Most of the state money will be used by operators to buy or maintain buses for 23 providers throughout the state. The biggest award was a $4 million grant to St. Cloud Metropolitan Transit Commission. And there's even good news into the future. As Representative Torkelson is quoted, he said he supports transit outstate, but noted about $27 million of unspent transit money set aside for Greater Minnesota will be left on the fund's balance sheet as a cushion at the end of fiscal 2017. And he says, it's not like we're dealing with a lack of funds. And that is certainly good news for Greater Minnesota because we have observed that's a desire and a need everywhere. There was another article in this morning's paper on the opinion page, and it deals with Twin Cities bus and rail transit. And the author says, it's 8:32 a.m. at the 46th Street Light Rail Station in Minneapolis, and my people have gathered for another Blue Line trip downtown or to stops along the way. Some riders, including me, have arrived by bus. We come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and ages. Our melting pot on wheels carries office workers, students, seniors, the disabled, and yes, the homeless. A few of us wear ties or business suits, but not many. We seldom talk with one another, preferring earbuds and reading over conversation, but we share a bond. We use transit. And in the eyes of some, that apparently renders us less important than the motorists we see from our buses, often texting while driving and alone in their cars. Some of my people would likely trade places with those drivers if they could, but the costs of car ownership, insurance, and parking make that impossible. Others, like me, can afford those things, but enjoy saving a few bucks, and truth be told, like being part of this army of mostly quiet, earnest transit users. Our colleagues come to work complaining about accidents, traffic jams, weather delays, and the cost of parking. A bus may run a few minutes early or late, but for the most part, transit is reliable. And the walk to and from the bus stops and stations is good for us, even in the middle of winter. We pay our fares, too. Random checks are pretty common. Metro Transit police are friendly but firm, and I seldom see a passenger unable to produce a ticket or pass. Officials say there were more than 82 million rides system-wide in 2016, an average of more than 266,000 a week. That's a lot of people like us, going to school, work, the doctor's office, the airport and the mall, and back home again. This week, we learned that the proposed House transportation bill could slash state funding for local transit by $122 million over the next 2 years. Economic development experts say transit is critical in efforts to attract the young talent we need to replace baby boomers in the workforce. We've already got some of them in the Army. They wear the nicest buds and headphones, but we could use more. You're welcome to join us. You might want to hurry up, though. It looks like the price of admission is about to go up. And I would add further, not only the price of admission, but there will be less of it. There will be fewer bus routes. And all of these people who are on a daily basis are depending on this will have some challenges in their life.
The lady from Dakota, Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it's critically important that we pass a comprehensive transportation bill. And while I appreciate all the work that's gone into this bill, it does have some good provisions. It really falls short on some very important points, like including a vision for the future or really moving Minnesota forward. I'm going to highlight 3 points about the process. One is, many of the Republican bills that came before my committee, usually the people testifying were in opposition to the bill, but the bills still passed out of committee, and many of them are in this bill. So much for public comment. An example, the chair did mention that we are going to be allowing heavier trucks to use our roads. The cities, the townships, all oppose this because it will damage already roads that are in pretty dire condition. Does that make sense? And not to mention that there are also people that really are concerned about the safety of these heavier trucks. Secondly, the attack on local control was huge this year. It seemed every third bill was trying to limit local government. Now, I have no idea whether they're trying to get rid of city councils and county commissioners or whether it's a matter of ego. But one bill that actually, I think, was the highlight is prohibiting local governments from spending any money to study, plan, or design for rail. Tell me what kind of sense that makes, and how do you really expect those people to do a good job for their community? There are so many provisions in here that are just plain micromanaging. Micromanaging is not good policy. As a former city council member, I found these bills to be insulting, and again, they're short on good policy. Last, the lack of sustainable long-term funding is obvious. We've heard again that MnDOT has been just doing basic preventive and maintenance work because they don't have the money to do anything more extensive. And yet, there really is no new money in this bill. Now, I must admit there is some new funding. They are transferring sales taxes from automotive parts. That's new to transportation, but it's not new to Minnesota. And they took a huge chunk out of the general fund. Now, again, 2 years from now, the next legislature can put a stop to that. So this is not long-term sustainable funding, and it's important to do that. Again, when you're talking roads and building bridges, these are long-term projects that involve a lot of money, a lot of huge equipment. People need to know that there is going to be their money there when they're ready to move. And I don't know, I could write a book about all the things that we're not doing right in this bill. And I might mention, I think the chair had mentioned that he was so proud that there's no gas tax increase. Good for you folks. But the Truckers Association, they're comfortable, and they pay with gas taxes and increasing some of the funding that we have right now, and they pay a lot of money. So it would seem to me we might want to take them up on that. And certainly the people in my district have no problems with the gas tax increase. They know that it changes from day to day if you go to purchase gas. So again, there is so much short-term lack of visioning in this bill. For these reasons and others, I will be voting no, and I hope that you do too, so that we can go back and get a bill that really justifies the importance of getting a transportation out, a good transportation bill this year, one that's realistic, reliable.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Chair Torkelson, I enjoyed being on your committee this year. We heard a lot of bills. We looked at a lot of things, and you did the best you could do with the task you were given. Increase funding to transportation, but don't raise any dedicated funds. I get it. Another thing I get is the members on your side just don't like trains. I've been hearing that for years. We don't like trains. We don't like the light rail. We don't like the commuter rail to St. Cloud, or excuse me, to Big Lake. We don't like trains. We don't like the Amtrak. Well, we support buses, I keep hearing people say. Well, guess what? This bill proves that that's a lie. You're cutting bus service by 40% in the metro area, increasing it for the opt-outs, or now they're the suburban transit providers, but they used to be called opt-outs. You're increasing funding for rural transit, but you're cutting the core metro bus service by 40%. I hope that you're going to have money coming down the roads to build more roads in the metro area, because we're going to need them. You take 40% of the people off of the buses and put them on our roads. You think congestion's bad today? It's going to get a whole lot worse. But maybe that's a good thing for the trade that I come from, in the building trades, because that means there's going to be more jobs to build a lot more roads in the metro area and suck up more of that gas tax dollars and bring it to the metro area. Because that's another lie that's out there that people like to say, is that the outstate funds the metro area and then funds the transit. Well, guess what? All the things that we see in taxes, from the gas tax or the sales tax, the majority of that money is generated in this metro area. And if we don't have a vital metro area, there isn't going to be gas tax money for roads in the outstate. There isn't going to be LGA for your local counties in the outstate and your cities, county aid for the counties out there. There isn't going to be any of that money, because if we do continue down this road of trying to strangle the metro area, strangle the growth in the metro area, to make sure that we can't provide jobs and services for the people that live here, and generate the economy that this state that makes us prosperous across the state, so that we can send money out to the outstate to build the roads that you need, that we all need, that the businesses out there need. I don't want us to end up like Michigan, where the city of Detroit is a black hole in the center and the rest of the state is crumbling down around it. I don't want us to end up like that. We need to have a vital metro area. And part of having a vital metro area is having good public transit, so that people can get to work, people that can get to the store, can get to their doctor's office, can get to the Twins and the Vikings games, and all the other things that go on in the metro area. They get there without having to have a car. And all those people that are disabled and senior citizens, like this morning I wasn't here when we checked in, because I had to take my mother to the eye doctor, or excuse me, to the dentist, because she no longer drives. She's going blind. She had a stroke last year. She no longer drives. And there isn't bus service where she can get to from where she's living now in assisted living to her dentist's office. So I had to drive her. But when I get old and I can't drive, who's going to be driving her and who's going to be driving me? And how are we going to get around? If we don't have a good public transit system in the metro area, we're all going to be in trouble. And we're going to suck the vitality of this metro area away, and there isn't going to be funding for any of the other things we want in the state. So, Chair Torkelson, I'm going to be voting no on the bill today, and I know you did the best job you could do with the task you were given, but this is a totally inadequate bill.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Dean R.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to piggyback a little bit on what Representative Nelson just said, I thought you all were for buses. Time and time again, you sit and you talk about we're for buses. Buses are the best use of our transportation dollars. And yet, in this bill, you cut funding specifically for bus services over 40% through Metro Transit. And while many of you might think that you're cutting bus services to the people in Minneapolis and the people in St. Paul, you know what? You're also cutting bus service to the people in Forest Lake, to the people in Columbus, to the people in Blaine, to the people in Ramsey, Anoka, Champlin, Lakeville, Inver Grove Heights, Cottage Grove, Baytown Township, Oak Park, Stillwater. You're cutting services to the parts of the metro area that you all represent, and yet you say you like buses. I mean, I don't know what else to call it except hypocritical. And I know you're over there laughing at each other, not paying attention, because that's what we do. But this is serious stuff. I mean, beyond what Representative Nelson talked about, do you know the cost of congestion? It was a few years ago we got a letter from a chicken company in northwestern part of the metro area. And they said that the cost of congestion, the added cost of congestion for them, added 25 cents a pound to the cost of chicken. Now, I don't eat chicken, so I don't know exactly what that means. But I'm guessing for a regular meal of a family of 4, that could be an additional $4 or $5. Which is what you're talking about for transit for some folks to get to and from work. So I think it's time that you begin to actually dedicate the funds in the areas of the things that you say are important if you're really going to be sort of walking what you're saying. So again, this is one of those days where we look at what's happening here and we look around and we ask, what the hell are we doing? Because really, what are we doing? Are we just moving around the chairs on the Titanic? Or are we trying to impact positively the lives of the people in Minnesota? Roads and bridges are important. So is transit. And transit isn't only a thing for the metro area. It's throughout the whole state. So I would just ask that if you really believe that buses are better than LRT, that you vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, let us please watch our language used on the House floor. The gentleman from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transportation, planes, trains, and automobiles. All of them start shiny and new. Then eventually they're retired and then laid to rest. Members, I'm not going to get into the debate that we're into today. I'm going to ask Representative Torkelson if he could do something. In the Senate last night, and the Senate doesn't have a 24-hour rule. We do. The Senate passed an amendment unanimously on a bipartisan basis to rename a section of Highway 52 for former Senator Jim Metzen. Senator Metzen served in this body and served in the Senate and passed away last year after adjournment. He served our district well, and he fought for a number of these infrastructure projects, whether they be Robert Street or the airport in South St. Paul, which I see is funded. I think it's important to remember we're all here, but for a short time. And the legacy we leave sometimes is written in these bills and sometimes is written in our work. And I would ask you, Representative Torkelson, and I would ask the body if we could do something. It's too late to do it formally in this bill, but there may be another chance here, and there may be a chance in the conference committee to accept that language and to recognize the work from former Senator Metzen.
The gentleman from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, have you heard the bad news? Perhaps you read it. I passed it out yesterday. It indicated that high taxes result in low results for Minnesota schools and transportation, bridges and roads. So I'll just quickly read to you. We have much on the desk, much to do today. Anyway, Florida, the percentage of roads that are in disrepair in Florida, 4%. Arizona, 7%. Texas, 8%. Nevada, 2%. Our neighbor, South Dakota, 6%. Percentage of roads in poor condition in Minnesota is 11%. And yet those states that I mentioned are low-tax states. Bridges of structurally deficient, we also fail in that as well. If you recall, yesterday I passed out some information from the Twin Cities Business Magazine. They did a report on this, on our roads and bridges in Minnesota, and compared it with other states. High taxes result in low-performing transportation, roads and bridges. Bridges of deficiency, Florida is 2%, Arizona is 3%, Texas 2%, South Dakota is 21%, and Representative Rarick can confirm that. They have lousy roads over there, I guess. And then Minnesota's 8%. The good news is, though, that Representative Torkelson's bill puts close to $2.1 billion into transportation without raising taxes. You see, what the Twin Cities Business Magazine indicated with their study, not Representative McDonald saying this, but experts in U.S. News and World Report and Twin Cities Business, is that a high tax state doesn't necessarily mean great results, roads, bridges, and schools. I think it's a lesson to be learned that we can take from that. Those in Wright County believe that some of the great, particularly in this bill, all the sales taxes from auto parts, tires, batteries, and such will go towards roads. Yes, it takes for the general fund, but over 33 states in our nation do take funds from the general fund to transfer, to use for roads and bridges, and they do it very successfully. So I would like to ask Representative Dean R. if he would yield for a question.
The gentleman will yield. The gentleman from Wright.
Representative Dean, I really don't know what Governor Ventura said. What did he say about the roads in St. Paul?
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Dean R.
Well, I think he said something about the people that designed it may have consumed a little too much alcohol.
The gentleman from Wright.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just, that question was vexing me. I had to ask you that because actually he said the Irish, and that wasn't a very good thing to say, and I'm sorry that you reminded us of that from the begin with. Anyway, I encourage you to support Representative Torkelson's bill. It puts the funds in the right places in Minnesota, roads and bridges, and it helps out in our infrastructure, and you'd be foolish not to support this good bill. Majority of Minnesotans do not want a gas tax increase to support this. Matter of fact, according to the Minnesota Management and Budget, part of the surplus that we had, the $2 billion surplus several years ago, was attributed to the low cost of gasoline. And according to Minnesota Management Budget, that resulted in over $900 per family per year of savings. So we can fund our roads and bridges and prioritize those that are necessary and for the infrastructure. And I just ask your support.
The gentleman from Waseca, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And a lot of the debate today has been resolved around and the idea of whether or not our funding streams ought to be constitutionally dedicated, specifically gas tax, or general fund. And so I want to just make sure for everybody that we really understand what we're talking about here. This particular bill provides over $2 billion over this biennium for roads and bridges. And so for people that are listening out there, we have the ability, we have the dollars in hand and the ability to provide $2 billion for our infrastructure of our roads and bridges towards this. Yes, the question becomes, well, what about in the future? Well, we all know that as a body, we can only deal with our own biennium that we're in. Elections change, members, election changes a lot of things, so does the economy. The only thing we can guarantee is today and this biennium. Nobody has talked about whether or not we're spending too much. People just say it's not good into the future, but we can't really predict that. Now, my fellow friend, Representative Clark Johnson, and I share Highway 14 interests. I haven't talked about it for a while. He has. And so I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, if Representative Johnson would yield for a question.
He will yield. The gentleman from Steele.
Representative Johnson, Highway 14, as you said, did get some funding and it did get some improvements. What program funded that particular project?
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Petersburg, if you're referring to that nice new 4-lane that goes from the beautiful city of North Mankato to the west end of the fine community of Nicollet, that would be the Corridors of Commerce.
The man of steel, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if the representative would yield for another question.
He will. The gentleman from Waseca.
Representative Johnson, of all those funds that over the last two sessions, about $350 million went into Corridors of Commerce, how much of that came from some of these constitutionally dedicated programs that you want us to increase?
The gentleman from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Petersburg, the original $300 million, which was done in 2013, after a lot of consternation, we were able to achieve $300 million. That came from the bonding, and that comes out of the Trunk Highway Fund, and those are paid back by gas tax dollars.
The gentleman from Steele, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Johnson. Yeah, they came out of bonding dollars. They didn't come out of highway user tax distribution funds directly. And that's the important part that I think is important for us to remember. Corridors of Commerce is a program that does require cash. It requires bonding. It requires other things. It isn't directly paid for by highway user tax distribution funds where all these programs, all these dedicated funds are coming. We know the local bridge fund has come out of general obligation bonds, et cetera. We fund our transportation programs a lot because we know that the constitutionally dedicated programs have not kept up with pace. And that's the very reason why it needs to stay in competition with the general fund and other dollars that it needs to compete for, because it is such an important infrastructure. Now, I could give you the same information that I gave you yesterday. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to remind everybody, currently we have a bill that has $2 billion over the next 2 years to getting the infrastructure moving forward, and we're going to vote it down, or people are suggesting we vote no because it doesn't come from the right source. Let's get this bill moving forward. Let's get these programs funded, and let's get the Highway Department on the way to improving our infrastructure. Thank you.
The gentleman from Grove City, Chairman Erdahl.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And I would just like to highlight one section of this bill that I've been particularly concerned about for a couple of years now. We all know, all Minnesotans know, or they should know, that when the stop arm comes down on a school bus, that whether you're meeting or you're behind the bus, you're supposed to stop. Well, included in this bill is a provision to increase the penalties for those who violate the stop arm provision. And why is this necessary? Because surveys being done by school bus drivers each year indicate that every day in Minnesota there are 400 to 500 violations. Over the course of a year, it's roughly 72,000 violations of the school bus stop arm provision, for which approximately 300 actually go through the court system each year regarding that violation. And so what I'm trying to do is to highlight this problem that we have in the state. Increasing the penalty from $300 to $500 is one step. There are other things that could be done and perhaps will be at a later date in trying to help the public understand this better and be more serious about it. And I just wanted to highlight it today.
The gentleman from Hennepin, Representative Carlson L.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, members, first of all, I want to comment a little bit about we're one state, and I've always approached it that way. As I was sitting here, I remember a few years ago it didn't deal with transportation, it dealt with infrastructure, but Representative Driscowski coming in when I happened to chair the Finance Committee, and he had an event in St. Charles, Minnesota. Now, I'm from the Twin Cities area, a suburb, and I said, yes, we'll help your community. It was in Greater Minnesota, and I hope you remember that. I remember, and I've never actually served as a voting member of the Transportation Committee. In fact, Representative Hornstein joked a little bit about what my role was there. But again, when I chaired the Finance Committee, I was on transportation ex officio and would drop in from time to time. And we have a little story about the first time I dropped in that I don't need to share right now. But at any rate, I have gotten involved with transportation in other committees. Capital investment I served on for a number of years. And I do remember negotiating a bill with the Senate. And transportation issues came in. I needed a voice from a member from Greater Minnesota. And I called upon Clark Johnson, being that we have two, Representative Johnson. It was late at night, and I said, I need some input from a member from Greater Minnesota that's got some background in transportation. And he must have been living close at the time because he was right over, and he joined in with the negotiations that we had. And it was, quite frankly, a bit of a tug-of-war metro-rural at the time. We were trying to solve some issues in Greater Minnesota and also in Dakota County, if Representative Johnson remembers that. And we were able to resolve that to the benefit of both areas. Again, one state. And a good example of that philosophy, and I've believed in it long before I ever heard this phrase or quote, but we all do better when we all do better. Paul Wellstone. And I think that's an important thing to remember. And I hope people were listening to Representative Clark Johnson when he talked about what I'm calling one state. I think that's an important thing for us to remember, whether we're talking about education, higher education, or any other areas of responsibility in state government. We are just that, one state. But I would like to comment a bit about dedicated funding, because some of us, probably not very many of us anymore, were here when we were having some funding issues in transportation, and we made the decision statutorily to begin to move dollars over from the license plate fees, the tab fees, and we would end up having some fiscal problems. And so it would be delayed. We'd put it in law, and then we would delay it. And then we would delay it again. And that happened over several years. I forget just how many biennium. But it was very difficult to accomplish because it was statutorily done, and it put transportation in competition with other areas of the state budget. And when things got tight, it was transportation actually that lost out. And I think we need to remember that. It wasn't until we put on the ballot a constitutional amendment to dedicate those fees to transportation that we ultimately resolved that issue. And so that's the important thing, I think, when you were talking about general fund dollars being used for transportation. It's truly not sustainable. We've learned that. We've learned it in the past on more than one occasion. So I would hope that we can reconsider that. And some people say, well, we've used general fund dollars in the past, debt service and so on, but not to this magnitude. I mean, this is the way where we're going to be funding transportation if this were to become law. And it's just not a workable long-term solution that the state of Minnesota can rely upon. So I'm going to be voting no on this bill for a whole variety of reasons, but it does not reflect a good funding solution. It does not reflect at least my basic philosophy, and I know others here, that we are just that one state.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I just wanted to comment briefly about this idea about dedicated dollars that Representative Torkelson was discussing some time ago, that the roads and the bridges don't care where the dollars come from. And of course, members on our side keep talking about wanting long-term sustainable funding, which we think is very important. I agree with you, Representative Torkelson, that the roads and bridges don't care and the people who are building them don't care where the dollars come from. That is obvious. But the problem is that the things that are being competed with don't have constitutionally dedicated funding. So I think about the babies in the state, our babies who are growing up in poverty, very deep, grinding poverty, who are not getting support for their families that they need. There's no dedicated funding for them, Representative Torkelson, and we are not meeting their needs. And there are school kids in this state who are depending on us to provide for their education, as our Constitution says that we must, and they don't have the constitutionally dedicated funding to make sure that they have their priorities met. And we have seniors in the state who need help to pay for extremely expensive long-term care, and there is no dedicated, constitutionally dedicated funding for them either. And then, especially poignant and important this year, we have people who have disabilities who need direct support staff to support them, and they've come here now for the second biennium asking us to raise the wages of the people who provide that hands-on care, and they're getting nothing in a raise for those people, and they are desperate. There are people whose very lives are in danger because they don't have people to support them. We are giving them nothing in this budget, and there is no constitutionally dedicated fund for them. So that is the problem we're facing here. That is the problem, and I asked the staff to give me the numbers in the bill that would provide the 4 and 4 increase for the people I just spoke about. So in 18-19, for just 4% increase each year of the biennium, which Representative Considine well knows is not enough, that would be $236 million for the biennium. And then in the next biennium, it would be $443 million. And there is no constitutionally dedicated fund for them. So if Republican members want to say, we don't need any more revenue, we're just fine, we've got a surplus. Well, members, you are not meeting needs that you know, especially the members who sit on Health and Human Services, you know that these needs are there. These are people who are desperate for help. They absolutely depend on the state to dedicate that funding, and they don't have constitutionally dedicated funds. So the reason that I don't think there is anything magic about what pot the funds come from. I agree with you, Representative Torkelson. You know, I wouldn't squawk about taking some money out of the general fund if we were truly meeting our other needs. But we're not even talking about long-term here. We're talking about now. Now, we are not meeting the needs in this state, and yet we have tremendous needs in our transportation system, and we are just taking from one pot and putting it into another and then claiming we've got the job done, and we don't. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Chair Torkelson, thank you for running a very good committee.
I am really baffled by this bill. To me, it makes absolutely no sense. Districts like mine are the economic engines of this state, and we pay money to all the other districts in the state, and we're okay with that. That's good. We want the state as a whole to be the best that it can be, and we want good transportation throughout the state, whether it's roads, bridges, or transit. But to come and see the attack on the metro area for transit, to me, is bewildering, because you're attacking yourselves. You're choking off our economic growth, which means you get less money from us. To me, it just doesn't make sense. We heard in committee the Chamber of Commerce, business leaders, you name it, citizens that came in one after another pleading for money for transit. And Southwest Light Rail was a part of that discussion too. We have major corporations that are going to have huge inflows of jobs over the next few years. United Healthcare built their own station to accommodate the 6,000 new employees over the next 2 years. It's estimated that there are going to be 80,000 new people taking this route. And right now, Highway 62 and 494 aren't doing it. You sit in traffic for hours and hours at a time. And to me, I am happy to give our dollars throughout the state so that we have good roads and bridges and transit everywhere in our state. But this bill is unfair, it's short-sighted, and I'm a no. And I hope members will join me.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Loeffler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. When I look at a bill, I think about who does it benefit, who does it hurt, what's the overall balance, and what's the overall outcome for us as a state. And I have to say, I have to stand up and speak on this one for the people of my district who don't have any choices. I represent neighborhoods in which 20 to 25% of the households have not one car. They don't have a choice like some people to decide to go to the park and ride because they'd like to read a book on the way into work. They have to walk 4 to 6 blocks, maybe, to get to the corner. Mostly, my corners don't have bus shelters, to stand out there and wait, and then transfer. If they're lucky, they work a normal day shift, but if they're not, nights and weekends, which is what a lot of people have to work in a lot of different industries, whether you're working at a hospital, whether you're a server at a restaurant, whether you work at a theater taking tickets. A lot of our college students, they have to work uneven hours. I have at times written to state agencies when they've had 7 or 8 information sessions, listening sessions in greater Minnesota, and they'll have 1 in the entire metro area where over half of our population lives. And I will figure out what it takes for a bus person to get to that 6:30 hearing, that's 6:30 till 9 in Bloomington or wherever they're going to have it. And very often it will take them over 3 hours to and from, and they will arrive late and have to leave early. So they can't even not only participate, is it difficult for them to get to work, to get their kids to childcare, to get their groceries. It's hard for them to participate in democracy. We've had a couple of mild winters, but I got to tell you, on the cold winters, I get calls or emails from people who are so frustrated because they've walked to that bus stop and they've stood out there in the cold, and bus after bus has driven by them because they're full. There's not even room to stand. And if you haven't stand on a city bus that lurches from one stop, block after block after block on its way to downtown, I gotta tell you, it's a nice workout trying to kind of brace yourself as it lurches from place to place. But these are people who do it every day because that's what their options are. And I know, and they pay with their lives, with the time. When I was a college student, I spent 15 hours a week on the bus, just going to my campus and going to my after-work school job and getting back home. And every single one of those routes was a transfer, Sometimes those transfers matched up nice, but a lot of times it was a 20 or 30-minute wait outside and whatever the weather was. Some days it was nice, some days it wasn't, but just waiting on a corner isn't exciting in anyone's life. And it's not any better. Here it is all those years later, and it's not better. If there was a current college student who was taking had that same job, those same hours, those same things. And so for us to be seriously considering a bill that will result in 40% cuts in basic bus service is devastating to people who will not benefit from your tax bill. These are the people at the lowest end of the spectrum. It will not help them maintain employment because many of those places may no longer have bus service. And it will not help us in terms of moving people forward in self-sufficiency. And on top of that, it will increase their costs at a minimum $130 a year. That's a lot. That's a lot for someone who can't afford many options in their life. And I think it's cruel for us not to acknowledge the impacts on ordinary, hardworking people who just happen to have jobs that don't pay a whole lot of money or are still struggling to get through school. So I would urge a no vote on this bill.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to address two issues today. Number one, concern about the fact that we're not using constitutionally dedicated funds to address the transportation needs for our roads and bridges that we have out there. I feel that if we were using constitutionally dedicated funds, this would free up the money desperately needed in health and human services to provide our personal care attendants a living wage. Number two, I'm very concerned about what is being proposed for the bus cuts in the area. When I take a look at the map that was passed off by Representative Dean and Representative Yocum, I notice that they're showing that we have bus service in my community, and in some ways it's almost laughable because basically the current bus service doesn't cover the full communities, and it's only during rush hour. The parts of the communities that do have it throughout the day will present a hardship when we have a 40% loss. Right now, we have low-income apartments that when the car stops running for the family, they have to walk an hour to the bus stop. With a 40% cut, they have to walk an additional 2 hours to find a bus stop. These people end up losing their homes. They will end up losing their jobs. They will no longer be able to help their families. I also want to point out these are communities that are losing the bus service, are also communities that are very much racially diverse. These are not communities that look like the rest of us. So what we're doing here is we're taking away bus service from those who need it the most and people who are racially diverse. We're also taking away bus service from seniors. We have a lot of large senior complexes in our area that would lose bus service. On top of that, there are 2 homeless shelters that are at risk. One of them provides safe harbors housing. These are the people that are at risk. Now, I know over on the Republican side, I hear talk quite a bit how important and that they are committed to supporting people who are of color, who are seniors, and people who are being preyed on or homeless. But at the same time, the actions that I see in your transportation bill here do not support those efforts. I ask that you keep that in mind as you go forward, is to restore the cuts that are there and allow for an increase in the transportation area, because right now the people that are primarily being hurt by these cuts would cause racial inequities to increase in our area instead of decrease. And I think that's something that, as a legislature, we have to keep more of an eye on. What are we doing to the racial inequalities in our districts?
Recognize the member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm wondering if Representative Torkelson would yield for a question. I don't see him on the floor. Oh, there he is.
He will yield. Representative Bly.
Representative Torkelson, I'm wondering, when is the last time you rode on a train?
Representative Torkelson.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, I know props aren't allowed on the floor, but here's my go-to card, Representative Bly. I use it quite regularly, and I ride the Green Line because you know what? It only costs 50 cents. I can get here for 50 cents. I can't start my car for 50 cents. It's a great deal. Maybe it's too good a deal.
The member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you. Have you ridden on a train, if Representative Torkelson would continue to yield?
He will yield, Representative
Have you
Bly.
ridden on a train that's not light rail?
Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Bly, a number of them. I hesitate to try and list them all, but I've ridden on trains in Chicago, I've ridden on trains in Europe, I've ridden on trains in New Zealand, I've ridden on trains in many places, and they're a great way to get around.
The member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Representative Torkelson. I agree. It's a great way to get around. Do you know, would Representative Torkelson continue to yield? Do you know where the best trains are built?
He will yield, Representative Torkelson.
I didn't hear everything you said, but I think you're talking about the trains that are built in St. Cloud, or I'm not sure, Representative Bly. Perhaps you can educate me, Professor.
Member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Sure. I think what people who look at technology, you mentioned technology in your comment earlier, say the French are building the best trains. And you might argue, I suppose, that the Chinese or the Japanese, they're building really good trains. And part of it is because they've invested in that transportation. And they've seen it grow and improve. And people really count on that kind of transportation in those countries. And, not every taxpayer can afford a BMW or even the monthly payment on a BMW. And a good transportation system that includes transportation for all of our taxpayers is a good thing. I passed around some maps earlier just to sort of highlight about what some people are saying Minnesota could benefit from if we did that. It's a little bit confusing the way it's put together. I apologize for that. But there's one map that talks about the Amtrak system. And you notice that the dark line that goes through Minnesota, that's the only Amtrak service we have. There's a line that goes up to Duluth, but that's not operating anymore. There's some that hope that it would. You can look at some of the other states and you can see that some of them have several lines on them. And if you look at the first page in the packet, you see that there's an advocacy group called All Aboard Minnesota that is advocating for rail service in a number of cities in the Midwest, several lines in Minnesota. These lines would benefit people who don't necessarily have a car. Maybe they decided that they shouldn't be driving on the roads. They'd like to go to visit their relatives and they can't. Even the bus service that might have taken them has diminished. Yeah, I know. So on the last page is the 2015 MnDOT Regional Passenger Rail Plan. And again, the lack of the color distinction here, I see Representative Torkelson has left. But it shows progression of several services in the sort of south central Minnesota where rail service would be provided, that was the plan in 2015 to move forward. I think this is a good plan. It's going to go away, though, because we're going to, in this bill, kill the passenger rail office. People who might have been counting on or hoping for, and people in my community look forward to the possibility of having this kind of transportation. They'll be very disappointed to know that there'll be no future in that. I think it's, as I said earlier, I think it's very short-sighted. I think that this is something that is worth investing in, something that we should continue to try to promote in years ahead. It's future-oriented. It looks at how people in the future will travel. And contrary to the illusion that Representative Torkelson made that technology just isn't there anymore, the technology is there. The will is not. Thank you.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a letter on your desks that I Same one, might look familiar. I handed it out yesterday. It's from the League of Minnesota Cities, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, Metro Cities, Minnesota Association of Small Cities, and Municipal Leader Commission. Get used to seeing this letter. It talks about all the ways this body has been trying to take away local control from folks elected to our city councils and counties all over the state. And 22 bills and counting, I believe, and I'm sure there's many more to come, many of them tucked away in omnibus bills. The transportation bill in front of us, though, has a few little nuggets on Article 3, Section 79, 80, and 85. They prohibit a city, a county, or a railroad authority from spending even one penny to talk about, to study, to plan, to design, or construct a light rail line. And if this year's any indication, I'm sure that's not where it'll stop. Your BRT might be next. Kind of reminds me of that one route that shall not be named. Dan Patch, I think. So just think about that. And then there's another map that I think a few of us handed out on your desk. I know all the folks, your folks on the other side of the aisle from us, have this unhealthy aversion to trains. And I'm trying to understand that. And you repeatedly say that we should be funding buses instead. And your answer to funding buses can be found in this House File 861. Your answer is to decimate Metro buses, leading to 40% cuts in their routes and mandating a fare increase to boot. That's 4 out of 10 buses out of our roads, off our roads, that'll be gone. 4 out of 10 buses, 40% cut. Metro Transit, that's taking that cut, they provide 66% of the regional rides. And even after that fare increase, the Metro Transit will face a deficit expected to be more than $120 million between the language that's in this bill and the tax bill that we passed yesterday. 80% of those transit riders use this service to get to work or school. 40% of the workers that go into Minneapolis and St. Paul every day, 40% use transit. Can you imagine 40% more cars on our roads and all the parking that you would need? And I see Mr. Representative Newberger over there nodding his head. What he's not thinking is adding roads in our congested neck of the woods would mean decimating entire neighborhoods, taking out hundreds of houses and hundreds of businesses to do so. So lanes aren't always the best way to go. It depends on where you are. So you cut transit from 83 cities. Cities as far west as Mound, cities as far north as Forest Lake and Ramsey, as far east as Stillwater, my hometown, and Bayport, as far south as Lakeville. You say, wait, we fund transit? We give a little money to Greater Minnesota. And oh boy, we give this nice, healthy boost to the suburban transit systems, those providers that provide 5.5% of the regional transit rides. 5.5%. Who are those 12 lucky winners? Who are those 12 lucky winners that are going to reap the benefits of the 83 cities that get cut? Maple Grove, Plymouth, Chaska, Chanhassen, Eden Prairie, Shakopee, Prior Lake, Burnsville, Savage, Egan, Apple Valley, Rosemount. You are all so lucky. You get a bus, and you get a bus, and you get a bus, and you get a bus. Now, I'm particularly sensitive about this because you tell me and all my neighbors that we don't need light rail, we don't need the extension of the Green Line because we have Southwest Transit. But guess what? That beautiful air-conditioned coach bus with Wi-Fi drives by my towns, drives by Hopkins, drives by St. Louis Park on its way to Minneapolis, and they just wave. Doesn't stop. My friends and neighbors in Hopkins, just 9 miles from Minneapolis, to get to work, if they don't hit one of the 3 express buses from downtown Hopkins, it can take them over an hour to get those 9 miles. My friends in St. Louis Park, 4 miles, 40 minutes, if they don't hit an express, and that's not including if they're competing with the traffic on the roads, because guess what, guys? Buses drive on those congested roads too. So the bottom line is that this bill is picking winners and it's picking losers. And the metro region, 83 cities, they're the big losers in this bill. Those losers are transit-dependent folks in our area. These people are folks trying to get to their jobs, their students trying to get to their schools. There are elderly that are trying to age in place and don't drive anymore. They're the most vulnerable members of our communities that are transit-dependent. They live in those 83 cities that you're cutting. You know, I see you smiling over there. You may be okay with that. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not okay with leaving a gaping hole in our general fund, running up our credit cards with debt that we don't even have dedicated funding to pay back, on a roads and bridge bill that does absolutely nothing for transit in the metro region. Nothing. It decimates it. So, decimates it with draconian cuts, the region that's an economic driver, the entire region. You're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. Just want you to think about what this means for long term and vote no.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Really had not planned on getting up today. Before I go much farther, Mr. Speaker, is sly rascal allowed on the floor? Is that an inappropriate statement? I'll just skip it. Is Representative McDonald around? Oh, okay.
He's not currently on the floor. We'll see if we can find him for you.
Representative McDonald just compared our roads to Florida, Texas, and Arizona, and how they have better roads. Can anybody here think of why that might possibly be? Will you yield for a question, Representative Johnson?
He will yield, Representative
Why could
Considine.
it possibly be?
The member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson C.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It came to mind to me, too. I grew up in Fargo, and I know what cold weather does to my toes and what it did to my cheek a while ago, but I also know what it does to roads. It's far more expensive to keep roads going and keep them solid when you don't have those roads freeze, when the roads freeze. So those states, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, and Texas, good chance they haven't seen much frost on those roads.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Surprisingly, a few years ago on a trip to Denmark, I noticed that their roads, and they're quite a bit farther north, but they don't get the cold that we get either. He did, however, mention one of our neighbors up here in the north, South Dakota. Guess what? They just raised the gas tax in South Dakota to keep their roads in shape. If we really believe that the entire state is against gas tax, let's put it on the ballot. You guys have the power to do so. Put it on the ballot and see just how unpopular gas tax really is. Actually, for my DFL colleagues, I guess I have a lot of faith in the Minnesota voters as a whole. I believe they will see through this bill and realize that once again, we are kicking the can down the road. We have not increased funding for transportation. And what we are dangerously doing is piling up an amount of debt that could be catastrophic for Minnesota. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I think it's really critical the public understand the context. We've said a lot of phrases, including the phrase constitutionally dedicated funds. So making sure just that the public understands that historically transportation does get these dedicated funds, gas tax, other things that come to transportation, rather than the general fund, money that goes to these other needs, schools, health, so much more. The advantage of that, members, over the years is that we're protecting transportation against the inevitable economic ups and downs. Otherwise, Representative Johnson pointed out earlier, in the next downturn, our transportation needs are going to be pitted against those other needs and very likely to be cut because, of course, transportation often in the short term can be pushed off in ways that our schools and health cannot be. The majority's transportation approach abandons this. It relies on those general fund dollars and on borrowing. What it does is it shifts those dollars from other sources so they can't be used for those other things. So we know, again, this is going to be a problem when the next downturn hits, and this is just the nature of economics, right? It will hit, and then at that point, there'll be this squeeze. But you know what, members? We don't have to wait for that downturn. We get to see the effects right now, actually just over these couple of days. Yesterday, we saw cuts in protections for our environment and natural resources, right? This afternoon, we will be seeing an education funding proposal that doesn't even keep up with inflation, doesn't even meet the needs of our students as inflation creeps in. Next week, we'll be seeing a $600 million cut in health and human services, protections for our most vulnerable Minnesotans. Members, this is at a time when we have a $1.6 billion surplus. What's going to happen when some deficit hits? You know, members, I was thinking actually about offering an amendment requiring MnDOT to study the prospects of filling potholes with textbooks and wheelchairs. Because essentially that's what's happening, right? We're diverting those funds for these purposes. The problem here is we've got a lack of a real plan for the long term. We need sustainable, dedicated, dependable funding, not competing with other uses, not kicking the can down the road, as Representative Considine said, not maxing out on the credit card, not borrowing and diverting these funds and the cost coming due. MnDOT itself, you'll note in the letter you have at your desks, talks about how this is going to force them to prioritize short-term fixes, focus on preserving the system in its current state rather than modernizing bridges and pavements for the long term. We need to modernize, members. And the one particular example that hits particularly close to home is the bill's approach to transit. 86 of 87 counties, members, have transit in their communities. But of course, transit is particularly at risk in this bill in the metro area. To have a vibrant, thriving Minnesota requires we have a vibrant, thriving greater Minnesota and a vibrant, thriving metro area. And every truly thriving, vibrant, great metro area in the country, in the world, has a vibrant, thriving public transit system. Well, this bill will result in massive cuts to that system, a system many, many people rely on. So this will be a massive blow to the metro, but again, that means it's a massive blow to Minnesota. Fundamentally, what's the Minnesota formula? What causes us to have a high quality of life, strong public services, and a strong economy? It's one Minnesota acting together for the long term. One Minnesota, greater Minnesota, and the metro. It's one Minnesota, roads, bridges, and transit. It's long-term thinking, dedicated funding that actually meets our needs, that protects our schools, our seniors, our most vulnerable. One Minnesota acting together for the long term. Members, this bill is not that. Vote no.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the author of this bill yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Moran.
Since I don't sit on the Transportation Committee, and looking at your runs only run together for me, I need you to help me out a little bit. So can you tell me how much money do your bill take from the general fund in order to fund transportation?
Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Moran. The amount of sales tax dollars that are being utilized for transportation funding is $450 million in the biennium.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty healthy amount. I was looking over this document that you sent around what's going on in other states and the amount of money they're dedicating to transportation from the general fund. And it's in like thousands of dollars. And I believe, besides Texas and California. But the majority of the states are dedicating like thousands of dollars from the general fund. Would you yield for another question, Representative?
He will yield. Representative Torkelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative. There's 3 zeros missing on this spreadsheet. So in the case of Texas, it's $2.5 billion of general fund that they're using for their roads, which have been bragged up quite a bit here this afternoon.
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're correct. There's a couple of states that are using, they have numbers in the million, yeah, along with California. Would you yield for another question, Mr. Speaker?
He will yield. Representative Moran.
Representative Torkelson, when you was putting this bill proposal together, did you realize that you will be cutting bus service, transportation by 40% for the urban and suburban communities?
Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Moran. I realize certainly that this proposal that's before us today is challenging for transit here in the metro area. You know, I intend to work to try and come up with a bill that is, as we go through the process, as the governor puts his 2 cents into the conversation, that we can work towards something that will be more balanced. But we had to start somewhere, and the fact is there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding transportation and transit funding. I'll talk about that a little more later in my closing remarks. But until some of these uncertain aspects of transit and transportation funding are worked out, things that are happening outside of these walls, it's very difficult to put together a proposal that really makes sense in the current situation.
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So you realize that this proposal was going to really devastate the urban community and some suburban communities. But still, we brought this before the body without engaging, I'm going to make some assumptions here, without engaging like urban, suburban legislators in this process. You know, because often enough I hear in this body about this one Minnesota, and clearly, you know, in the conversation that we hear often from the rural community about being left out the process, or what we're doing here in St. Paul is not working for the rural community, I am feeling that, right? That what you're doing is really, you're not leaving us out, you're impacting us in a huge way. Because in the urban community, and I know in my community, a lot of the residents are transit-dependent residents who do not own cars. And as you were showing your bus pass that you use from downtown to the Capitol, I thought to myself, what a privilege. What a privilege to be able to have a bus pass to use from downtown to the Capitol that's called 50 cents. Because this 40% bus service cut that's going to happen to a community like mine, they won't pay 50 cents. This is something that they are dependent on to get to work, to get to school, or maybe just to get to a grocery store. This is about like real people's lives. This is about real people's lives and how we depend on transportation every single day for our livelihoods. And so when you bring a bill into this body that is massive, that cuts bus service, but then increases what we pay on that bus. And that won't be 50 cents. And it's hard to see something like this, because I disagree with you. I disagree that people don't care where the money comes from. I disagree with that. These are dollars that's coming from the general fund. It's where we get our dollars for education. It's where we get our dollars for public safety, LGA. You know, we're trying to get a $100 increase for MFIP, because to be on MFIP, you have to go to work or be in school. They take transportation. That's a real impact in real people's lives. And it's really disheartening to me that you are leaving the urban community or imposing such huge, can we call it a tax or something, onto the people who live in the urban community, who are the most dependent group of people to use transit. Transit is important to us, and it is our livelihood. It is our livelihood. Because we want to work, we want to be self-sufficient, we want our kids to go to school, we want our adults to go to school. That is important to us. Transit is important to us in the urban core. It is a part of who we are. And I become very disappointed when I see a bill that goes through this body, that comes before this body, someone who's not in transportation, who did not include urban legislators in the decision-making process. Very disheartening. And so, you know, we're looking at mental illness, the lack of social workers, counselors in our school. We're looking at the disabled. We're looking at investment in early childhood education or universal pre-K. $460 million from the general funds impacts, in my mind, all of that. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference where it has come from. Because if you put it somewhere, you have to not put it in other places. And I have continuously been able to witness the disinvestment, even with a $1.65 billion surplus. So I am disappointed because I believe that we need a transportation plan that benefits all Minnesotans in every part of the state. This includes roads, bridges, and transit. So unfortunate, this Republican proposal doesn't do enough for our transportation system. In some parts, it does way too much. It leaves a whole group of people out the process. And so my hope is that, you know, as the governor put his 2 cents in, as you stated, as the governor do that, and as you begin to negotiate with the governor, my hope is that you don't forget about the urban and suburban core here, because transit is something that we depend on. It's a matter of our own livelihood, about how we get around to be able to take care of ourselves, our families. It's important to us. It's something we need. I understand if, as rural folks, you say, you know, we don't need that. But we know what is needed in the rural community may not be what's needed in the urban core. And what's needed in the urban core looks different from what's needed in the rural core. But we say we are one Minnesota. You're not just a district legislator, you are a state legislator. We're all state legislators also. So my hope is that as you get into negotiations, that we come back with a better proposal here, a better bill that looks out for the little people, because this bill doesn't do that. And so I am truly unable to really support this bill in this current form and just look forward to a better bill. Thank you.
The member from Kuchiching, Representative Eklund.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be brief. I'm going to mention a number right now, 900. Representative Torkelson, thank you for working hard to put together this bill. You and I have had conversation about working on the bridge fund and trying to make it better or more usable for all of Minnesota. $12 million in the bridge fund grant is probably pretty low with a $7 million cap, and I'll come back to the number 900. St. Louis County, one of the 4 counties I represent, has 900 state-recognized bridges in the county. They use the tools that this legislature gave them to put in the half-cent sales tax, so they have a very robust road projects going on in the county. And there's many bridges in St. Louis County right now that are in need of repair, so I think we need to take a better look at that grant fund. Thank you.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this transportation bill has a lot of consequences for our state. And I'm just going to mention one economic consequence. Traffic congestion costs the nation $160 billion per year in direct and indirect costs. Traffic congestion in our state of Minnesota, just in one industry, in the construction industry alone, costs $150 million per year. That's a lot of money. The cost to the whole Minnesota economy of traffic congestion is $1.1 billion a year. That's twice the amount of money that we've received from federal highway funds in the past. $1.1 billion. We are not sufficiently funding sustainable transportation, which includes roads, bridges, and transit, to alleviate traffic congestion. It hurts our businesses in Minnesota. It's going to hurt our economy if we don't have dedicated funds for transportation, which includes transit, to alleviate traffic congestion. I hope we can improve this bill this session.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Flanagan.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to briefly rise to add my voice to those who are concerned about this transportation plan, but also to just add a little bit of additional information. So Representative Newberger, when he spoke about the $40 round trip in subsidy per passenger, I believe he was talking about the North Star commuter rail. I also just wanted to mention that round trip on the Metro Transit commuter rail, so the light rail, is $1.84 per round trip. I think that's important information to put out there. So just wanted to add my voice and make sure that we are telling the whole story as it relates to regional transit routes and the performance analysis data. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'm also going to invoke Representative Newberger's comments from earlier, too. I was hoping he was going to ask me what my favorite color is. My favorite color is orange, as in the BRT Orange Line, which receives zero funding in this project. This project was going to be a game changer for my community, as well as others along the 35W corridor. Just as a little bit of history, the 35W corridor, which was reconstructed about 10 years ago, was reconstructed specifically to accommodate, you guessed it, buses. Now we're not fully utilizing in which that major road reconstruction was intended to do. So this is a lost opportunity, and this just, I think, speaks to many of the projects and many of the short-sightedness in terms of this project. I will be voting no.
Any further discussion? The member from Anoka, Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to talk about how this bill will impact our state as well as the people in my community, and share just with you the stories of what I experienced with the friends that I know there. Our transportation system is crumbling and not meeting the current and future needs of Minnesotans. We need to create good jobs through multimodal projects that serve everyone, no matter if they're 1 or 101. And whatever type of transportation system they choose, whether it's biking, walking, riding a bus, driving a car, using rail. 40% of Minnesotans don't drive. In my community, one of my cities I represent, 80% of the households have either 0 or 1 car. I was actually shocked by that statistic. My friend Dorothy, who I go to church with, she's in her 80s, and her children took away her keys a few years ago because she ended up downtown. She doesn't remember how she got backwards in the parking ramp. She had an episode with a high blood pressure, and they said, "Mom, we're taking your keys away." Well, actually, it didn't bother Dorothy that much because she had access to local transit. She would go shopping, she would visit friends, and that was the way she got around. She could live independently and have the freedom to move without her keys. My friend Sarah, who lived down the road, she had gotten hit by a car on her bike when she was 14 years old. She ended up having a permanent disability. She was able to live independently, but she could not drive as well. She used the local bus system, and she traveled all over this metro area. She traveled to other cities, and she volunteered. She went shopping. She went to her doctors. She was dependent on transportation. And then I'm sure you have lots of people in your community, because people who use the bus, 80% are going to school and work. So my friend Deb, they had a car, but she chose to go downtown by using transit. I feel this bill shortchanges Minnesota and shortchanges all the people who need and want to use transit, including our millennials. And frankly, businesses used to set up in places that give them big tax breaks. They're actually looking around the country now to move to places that are creating a transportation system that's multimodal and that meets the desirability of the millennials who are moving to places that they like the transportation system, and then they're finding jobs. We need to be competitive and keep competitive around the state to be an economically viable, not only for prosperous Minnesota's future, but also prosperous future for all Minnesotans. So we need a safe, accessible transportation system that creates opportunities for all ages, abilities to be able to move about freely and to have their freedom and to live independently throughout their lives. So we need to come up with a bill that creates transparency and accountability, along with more transportation funding that's new, that's dedicated, and that it's long-term. Because we need to have every one of our dollars that we invest in our transportation system, we need to maximize them and to create the kind of Minnesota we want. So we actually fulfill our state's vision of a transportation system that's multimodal and that maximizes the health of people, the environment, and the economy. And I would add, for all Minnesotans. Thank you.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and thanks everyone for a very, very good and robust debate this afternoon. You know, our future is riding on transportation. It's the beating heart of Minnesota. We all and our constituents all rely on a good transportation system every single day. It's the loggers and the farmers and others that are getting their goods to market on our roads. It's those millennials that I ride the bus with every day. I ride the bus to work, folks. I ride the bus every day, and it's the millennials on the number 6 bus in Minneapolis that rely on transit to get them to work, downtown, and to the university, and to many other locations. It's all these metro commuters that are battling and dealing with congestion every day in their commute. They need reliability too. And it's that senior citizen in Mower County that needs reliable transit to get to the doctor or the grocery store or all of many destinations around that county. And so we all benefit from a safe and reliable transit system. But unfortunately, this bill is not reliable. Its source of funding is not reliable. Its deep cuts to transit affect reliability. This bill does not deliver the goods. It doesn't get us where we need to go. Why? My colleagues, many said it very well. By relying on the general fund, we don't have a reliable source of long-term, stable, dedicated money for transportation. And this isn't just theoretical, members. Let's look to our neighboring state of Wisconsin. What happened when they relied on the fund that we are now taking money from to fund schools, senior citizen programs, nursing homes, the things we fund with the general fund? What happened in Wisconsin? I'm just going to quote briefly from a Journal Sentinel, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article from November of 2014. Wisconsin voters on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved establishing a constitutional amendment that would prevent governors and legislators from using the state transportation fund for other uses. They went so far as to have a constitutional amendment against raiding the general fund for transportation. And here, this is interesting, members. The genesis for this referendum came when state elected officials tapped $1.3 billion from the transportation fund to pay for schools and other programs. And that's interesting, $1.3 billion. We heard that figure yesterday. So members, this is not theory. This has happened right next door. So as I said yesterday, the neighboring states we ought to emulate are Iowa and South Dakota and Nebraska that raised a modest user fee dedicated to roads and bridges. And again, as I've said time and again, this is not reliable for transit users. And I want to reiterate what my colleague said. Eviscerating the local bus service is a huge mistake. A 40% cut that will affect urban and suburban constituents, Democrats and Republicans. It's equal opportunity cutting, I think. And the incredible neglect in not funding two bipartisan bus rapid transit lines from Minneapolis to Lakeville, from St. Paul to Woodbury. Even if we funded the capital cost of those lines, this bill puts a huge damper on our ability to operate those lines, even if they were built. So we're all in this together, members. And I want to just conclude by expressing my hope that moving forward from today, we might be able to emulate what my mentor in transportation, Bernie Leader, might have done in terms of putting together a comprehensive transportation bill. You know, Bernie would have first and foremost made sure that everybody was taken care of. Everybody's interests were met. Everyone's needs were met. Whether they were in greater Minnesota, whether they were in the metro area, whether they were transit users, and whether they relied on roads and safe bridges. First and foremost, everyone needs to benefit. Bernie did that in 2008, and when he put together transportation bills, he made sure that that happened. He brought people along because these bills are very, very difficult to put together. There's many competing interests. As you can see, there's so many stakeholders. Bernie brought people along to make sure that everybody had a voice in the crafting of the bill. He made sure that Democrats and Republicans were at the table. He wanted to involve the business community and the unions and the counties and the townships and the cities, all of these important groups that have such a stake in a successful transportation outcome. And of course, he would want to make sure that the executive branch voice was included and honored as we move forward in doing our work in the state legislature. So members, we can do so much better than this. I've enjoyed Representative Torkelson working with you. You run a good committee. We have a good working relationship, even though we profoundly disagree on this bill. And so I hope that moving forward, we can remember the principles that Bernie Leader laid out when he put together the last very successful, comprehensive transportation bill. And of course, dedicated funding, reliable, dedicated, guaranteed funding for transportation was an important principle for Bernie. So members, I'm voting no, but I'm keeping open the hope that we can get this right. I know there are some compromise ideas being floated around. We ended last session with some compromise plans between the House and the Senate, but those didn't materialize. So we can get this done, but not today, not this bill. And my hope is that we can move forward together and put something much better on the table for later this session. Reluctantly, members, I urge a no vote.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you so much, Chair Torkelson, for putting this bill together. It lays the framework for a 10-year, $6 billion comprehensive package. And I think the discussion today really illustrates the differences in our approaches. Representative Flanagan, I appreciated the comments that you added on addition to Representative Newberger's comments. Representative Newberger earlier pointed out, we talked about the North Star commuter rail, that the state subsidizes it. I think he said 20, but I think it's actually higher, about $22 each way. And Representative Flanagan added that the ridership cost was $1.85. And I think that's part of the problem. I think you can see that when the rider is paying $1.85 and the state is paying, the taxpayers of the state are paying another 22, I think that kind of highlights the priority, and that is the priority that we've seen from the DFL the last several years, wanting to make sure that we have trains. But Representative Torkelson, I want to thank you because it puts together this very comprehensive package, and it doesn't use, it doesn't raise additional gas taxes, metro sales tax, or it doesn't increase tab fees. And frankly, after spending a lot of time throughout the state, that is what the people of Minnesota expect. I was listening to several members on the other side talk about funding and whether we should have dedicated funding, and they talked about stealing money from the general fund, and we shouldn't be using money from the general fund. But I would point out a couple things. 32 other states use funds from the general fund, and this is something that's actually in our Constitution. And if you believe that transportation is a priority, that funding roads and bridges is a priority, and even transit, then we should be using things like we do in our bill and that we've presented the last few years. When people go and they rent a car or they buy an auto part and they pay a tax on it, or they use any of the sales tax that relate to motor vehicles, such as the motor vehicle lease tax, I bet if you took the time, and I did, I've traveled quite a bit on this and I've talked to many people, and most people think that we use those dollars to improve our roads and bridges and transit throughout the state. And they are actually quite shocked. And I encourage you to go home and talk to your constituents because people are actually really surprised. So when you talk about stealing money from the general fund, if transportation is a priority, then we should be using these existing taxes that we already pay, and we can. We can get this done using existing funds. So thank you, Chair Torkelson, for putting that together. Some of the highlights from the bill that I think are really great: it funds the entirety of MnDOT's local bridge list. I think there's something like 97 bridges on that list, and I want to thank you, Chair Torkelson, for that. That's very important. $25 million for Small Cities Assistance Program, $300 million toward Corridors of Commerce funding in the next biennium. And Representative Johnson, you said it was for the next 10 years. Well, we're only funding for the next 2 years. So I'm hoping that we'll make this a priority and we'll continue to fund it going forward. But the $300 million, that's real time. That's in the next biennium. So if you want to support Corridors of Commerce like I do, and like I think many of us do, you should vote for this bill today, because that's going to go a long way towards those projects. This also provides additional funding for suburban suburb buses and provides for a new pilot program for suburb-to-suburb buses, and Greater Minnesota Transit will actually receive a $2 million increase as well. So members, I think this is a great bill. It lays the framework for a $6 billion comprehensive plan over the next 10 years, and I strongly encourage a green vote today.
The member from Brown, Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members, for an extensive and robust discussion of the transportation bill. I appreciate all of your input, and I've been listening closely. I would love to go down the list and debate all these points, but I think we've probably spent enough time debating the fine points of this for this afternoon. We'll have an opportunity to do this as we move through the rest of the process. When I started my remarks earlier, I thanked a number of people within this room, and I was happy to do that. But what I failed to do is thank all those people outside this room that work for the state of Minnesota in the Department of Transportation, in the Department of Public Services, the Highway Patrol, et cetera, that are funded by this bill. They're dedicated workers. I appreciate the work they do. You know, we're kind of hard on our commissions and the bureaucrats in general as we debate these issues, but they are dedicated people and they do great work for all of us and keep us safe as we utilize this transportation system that serves all of us here in the state of Minnesota. The majority leader covered many of the points that I was going to cover, so I'm going to, I think, jump to the end of my remarks. Folks, passing a transportation bill in the state of Minnesota is darn hard to do. If you look back over recent history, the history is littered with failed attempts, frankly. And along with that, raising the gas tax is darn near impossible. There was a time not long ago when the Democrats were in charge not only of this body, but the body across the street and the corner office besides, and in spite of that, didn't raise the gas tax. There's a reason for that. The reason is it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. And at this point in time, I believe it's unnecessary. We have the funds available to put together a robust transportation bill right now, and we should do it, utilizing the resources that are available. The other thing I'd like to think back to is just last year. Some of you, many of you were in this room at the time. We worked on a bonding bill. I happened to be chair of that committee. We passed it off of this floor with a substantial vote, 90 votes. And it contained significant amounts of transportation funding. There was some controversy about how we did it, but the fact is there was a lot of money there that would have put a lot of projects in play right now. That bill went over to the Senate, and the Senate decided to attach an amendment. And now this gets kind of to the core of why I might have some problems with light rail. I might have some problems with Met Council and the people that promote light rail in this state. That amendment that was placed on that bonding bill had nothing to do with bonding. It would have raised the cap for the Hennepin County Rail Authority so they could raise some more money to get this Southwest Light Rail project moving. And that amendment, in my mind, is what caused that bonding bill to fail. That bonding bill would have funded not only hundreds of millions of dollars of transportation projects, it would have funded hundreds of millions of dollars of clean water projects. And the list goes on. I'm not going to reiterate all those projects. But what happened afterward? The bill failed. We know that. Didn't get signed. We couldn't get to an agreement to have a special session. But those folks that stopped that bill with that amendment went ahead and found the money to do what they wanted to do anyway. They were willing to sacrifice all those good projects trying to get some money for something that they had a way to fund in the first place. And you wonder why I might be suspicious about how things work up here. Members, this is a good bill. We have substantial funds here that we can utilize to fund transportation, roads and bridges. I will be certainly pondering the issue of transit that has been highlighted today by the folks on the other side of the aisle. We're going to head for a conference committee. I'm looking forward to working with the governor and his staff on coming up with a transportation bill that we can get passed and signed into law and do the work that we need to do here in the state of Minnesota. Every one of us, whether we're in the nursing home or here in the legislature, is dependent on a system of roads and bridges that gets the things we need. It's not just getting people around, folks. It's getting the things we need to exist to the places we need them. And I ask for a green vote today and send this bill on its way to conference where we can work out the details and come back with a bill that all of you can support.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Clerk will close the roll. There being 76 ayes and 54 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to.